I had it at the room.
You saw me that time?
Trimming.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to White Lake Township's Tuesday, February 20th board meeting here at 6:30. It's a regularly scheduled board meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 6:30, and I would ask for those of you who can stand to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here.
Clerk Noble here. Supervisor Kowal.
Here.
Treasurer Roman.
Here.
Trustee Powell is excused. This evening he called. He'll be out of town for the evening. And then Trustee Voorhees.
Present.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I have a motion from Mr. Noble, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Next item is number 5, public comment. Now, public comment is for items that are generally not on the agenda. If it's an agenda item, you can wait till that item comes up, and this board has seen it fit to seek out the input from the residents at that specific time, so there can be some interaction at that time. So anyone at this time that has anything that is not on the agenda that they would like to speak about? Seeing none, closing public comment, moving on to items 6A through H, which is the consent agenda, revenue, expenses, check disbursements, department reports, bills, and sort. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Clerk Noble to support the consent agenda. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Trustee Andrea Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 16th, 2024. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Roman.
Motion to approve minutes from January 16th.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Roman. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item, presentation. We have with us tonight Robert Wittenberg. For those of you who may not know him, he is our county treasurer. Okay, so he's the guy that you get ticked off at about all your tax money. Okay? Not me. Okay.
I was actually going to shoulder the blame on all of you and say.
I know. No, Robert has been so kind to come here tonight to do a presentation, a brief presentation on foreclosure prevention. And it is a real live problem throughout many communities. And he came in here tonight to kind of address the public and the board on this matter. Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening, everyone. And here and at home if you're watching. I appreciate you having me. So talking about property tax foreclosure prevention, I won't talk for too long. It's a pretty brief presentation that I'll go over, but ultimately how it works, everyone that owes their taxes and you pay them on time, you pay them to the local community, so they're paying to you. Once it gets turned over delinquent, it comes over to the county. So, I've met with Mike Roman many times, and the process is in essence a 3-year process. So this year, it's typically March 31st is the foreclosure deadline. Because it falls on a weekend, this year, April 1st is the foreclosure deadline. So anyone that owes their 2021 or prior year taxes is subject to foreclosure. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I just started going around last week to communities. I'm trying to get to as many as I can throughout the county. We have 63 CVTs, more than any other county in the state, so it's a lot. I won't get to all of them, but I'm glad to be here with all of you. So I'll get into the specifics in just a little bit, but ultimately this is just talks a little bit about our office and the work that we've done. I don't need to really talk a lot about what's here other than I have done my best to get out and meet with, and that's when I met with Mike. When I first took office in 2021, I went and tried to meet with all local treasurers throughout the county, and then went back again just this last year, got to 59 of the 63. So wanted to come talk and say how, we work together, right? It's a partnership, and how can we help each other? How can we be more helpful at the county? So this slide will probably need to be updated. So we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. I don't know who is working the slide here anyway, over there. Thank you. I appreciate your work over there. So just to give you an idea of what happened last year. So this was 2023 properties, or the foreclosure deadline last year. So that would have been 2020 and prior year taxes that were due. So what got turned over to us was over 44,000, almost 45,000 parcels here in Oakland County got turned over to us. And then the other number you really need to know is down at the bottom was 95. And it was actually a little less than that. But if it's turned over to us and it's not paid within those 3 years, or someone doesn't enter a repayment agreement with us, then they can be foreclosed. That 95 was the number of foreclosures that we had last year. Most of those were actually vacant land or vacant parcels, vacant property. And so that was our lowest number we've ever had in Oakland County. So 95 was quite low, as you can imagine, with how big our county is. And so the work that we're doing, we'll go to the next slide. Thankfully, I have that in front of me because I can't even read that. I don't even know if I can read this. But just talking about the process itself and how it works. Like I said, April 1st is that deadline. What we're doing right now is our outreach campaign. Anyone who has 2021 or prior year taxes, they are getting letters sent to them, certified mail, first class mail. They're even getting personal visits to their property. So either if it's vacant, it gets staked. If there is a structure there, then it gets posted on the structure. So we are doing everything we can. We encourage people to reach out to us. We don't know you need help unless you tell us you need help. So we want people to reach out to us to let us know, and we can put you on a repayment agreement. We can't, as same with all of you, here, Mike can't forgive anyone, their taxes, their interest, their fees, anything that gets assessed. We have no way of lowering that or just getting rid of it. So what we can try to help with is giving you more time to pay, and then see if there's resources that are available in the community or throughout at the state level that can help you out. So right now we are in our outreach where I'm going to different communities. We're doing taxpayer assistance meetings. So these are one-on-one meetings with people where we talk about their unique situation and what's going on with them and how we can try to help them. I always say our goal, our job in our office is to collect taxes. Foreclosure is not what we're trying to do, right? Our goal is just to collect taxes. And so we're trying not to foreclose on anyone, and that's why those numbers are really low, is that we're trying to work with anyone. So we'll go to the next slide. Got turned around there, but ultimately to talk about some of the resources that are available within our office. We have the Financial Empowerment Center, which is in essence like a financial coach that we have in our office. So Rita, who runs this department, will actually talk to you about, again, your unique situation and see how she can be helpful, see if there are grants available, help with budgeting, help with debt. Also helps people who are looking to start a small business. She does a really great job there. So you can reach out to her directly, 248-858-0672. So that's one thing. Another is there is a poverty exemption that every community has. I should know offhand, but are you guys equalization or do you have your own assessor here?
Our own assessor.
You have your own assessor. Okay, so you have to reach out to the assessor here to see if you qualify for the poverty exemption, which would save you money on your taxes. So we encourage you to do that as well. That's something I want people to know. And then one of the other entities that we really encourage people to reach out to for low-income families and seniors, it's free legal services, and it's Lakeshore Legal Aid is the entity. They help you with anything other than criminal law and traffic citations. So don't go to them for that, but almost anything else, you can go to them as well. So that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to cover. Right now in Highland Town, we were looking In White Lake, sorry. In White Lake, we were looking, and I think there are about 55 parcels at this point that are subject to foreclosure on April 1st. So again, that number from when it was turned over in 2021 originally was probably thousands, maybe hundreds, thousands, whatever it might have been, but it keeps getting widowed down. And then now we're at about 55. We don't want to foreclose on any of those, right? So if anyone's at home listening to this, reach out to our office, 248-858-0611. We will schedule a time for a one-on-one taxpayer meeting. You can come in person if you want. Most of the time we do it over the phone. And like I said, we'll go over your situation and see how we can be helpful. But again, as I say, we can't help you unless you tell us you need the help. And so we're here to help. And I think that's the gist of what I want to say. If you don't remember anything else that I say, remember, we are here to help. So please reach out to us.
Okay, well, thank you.
That's
Thank
as
you
briefly
very
as
much.
I could run through this. I see there's other stuff on the agenda, but any questions I'm happy to answer or any other information.
Mr. Roman?
So Robert, in the unlikely event that you do foreclose on a property,
Yep.
Usually the local townships are given first right of refusal.
That's right.
To pick those properties up. And we did that about a year ago to protect our interest in a whole bunch of lots that needed buildings torn down. We had a lot of money into them. When we did pick them up from the county, they were deeded off to us as just a deed, as opposed to a warranty deed. If you can just investigate the possibility of the county issuing a warranty deed versus, I guess I would call it, it's called a sheriff's deed. That would be a huge help to the
Okay.
local communities. So just something to check into.
Yeah, I'll see. And obviously we're following whatever the statute says, but I'm not sure if there's something that we can do to go above and beyond to help with the local communities.
That would help. Thanks.
Yeah,
Great presentation. We appreciate you coming out.
yeah,
Thank you.
Anybody else
to-
at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
all right.
Appreciate you being here.
And then obviously if there's anything else that comes up over the year, if you ever need anything, I'm always available, always happy to help. I'll come chat with you again sometime.
Very good.
So, thank you all. Yep, thank you.
Okay, under new business, resolution number 24-005, tentatively declaring its intention to establish a special assessment district known as the Emergency Sewer Hookup, 2024-01. Mr. Heber, how many participants do we have?
Good evening. There's 8 parcels on this special assessment that'll go through the 3 board approval process if this moves forward. Tonight, you will declare your intention to create the special assessment and set the public hearing for the March 19th meeting, which will establish the public hearing. And then if everything goes through, it'll be confirmed on your April 16th meeting. And then those 8 parcels will be special assessed on the emergency sewer hookup for 10 years.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's anyone here for residents that are for this item.
I'm not sure. If they're here, if they have questions, they can ask. Otherwise, this board has done this several times. This is a process of which this board saw the wisdom in putting together an emergency sewer hookup program here within the township. And by ways and means of a special assessment district. Typically, one would say a special assessment district is like when you pave your street that all your neighbors get together. This is very similar to it, except that these districts may be scattered throughout the township and have, in this particular case, 8 members in this particular district. So they don't necessarily need to be living next door, but it secures the financial commitment for the township with the property and allows them the ability to pay it back. And more importantly, and most importantly, being a groundwater community, it gets people on the sewer system that generally had septic failure. So anything you care to add? Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve resolution 24-005, which is the intent resolution to establish an SAD district to be known as the Emergency Sewer Hookup 2024-01.
I have a motion from Mr. Roman, looking for support. I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, first reading of Six Lakes Filling Station rezoning. Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening. Hello Township Board. Before you tonight, you have a request from two applicants, the Six Lakes Party Store and the Filling Station, both on Cooley Lake Road. The common address of the Six Lakes Party Store is 9266 Cooley Lake Road. Filling Station is actually on two properties. One is 9260 Cooley Lake Road, and then a vacant property immediately east, identified as 12-35-476-050. Currently, both the properties that the two buildings are located on are zoned local business. The vacant property that actually has a parking lot for the filling station on it is zoned neighborhood office. At the Planning Commission meeting on February 1st, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider this request, and they made a recommendation to rezone the properties to restricted business. The applicants made an application initially for general business. Both of them, one of them wishes to sell alcohol, the other one currently does sell alcohol. Both the GB and the RB district allow for the sale of alcohol, both the retail sale of alcohol and also the serving of alcohol. And at the staff level, we kind of went back and forth and thought that restricted business might be a better fit given the kind of quiet residential area. Restricted business doesn't quite allow for as broad of a range of uses as general business, but would still allow these two applicants to achieve their goals through this process. Frankly, at the staff level, we don't have an issue with it going either way, but that was really kind of where we landed with the recommendation. One of the applicants, the owner of the filling station, had made it known that she was interested in outdoor seating for the restaurant. And at the time, we had discussed that, previously others had kind of carried food out and sat outside and ate, and lots of people did that during COVID and probably continue to do so, but the ordinance doesn't allow for that in restricted business. At the time, we had mentioned that one of the things at the staff level we had also discussed in this, when we were going over this request, was that it made sense to open up outdoor seating as a special land use in the restricted business district as well, which is what it's considered in the general business district. So, and as a matter of fact, we worked through a whole host of zoning ordinance amendments last week, and actually Justin spent probably an entire day or day and a half working through them, and those are already drafted and ready to move ahead. So regardless, either way, I think the applicant at the filling station will be able to seek later this spring a special land use permit, regardless of how this shakes out for outdoor seating. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that because that was something that came up at the Planning Commission. So again, the staff analysis, which applied all the standards of the zoning ordinance, felt that really either is appropriate, but the recommendation was for restricted business. One thing I want to make mention of is that the current master plan considers the property as a residential resort, which is more residential in character. And we discussed.
What was the current?
Residential resort.
Okay.
Is the current master plan.
Thank you.
We've adjusted the future land use plan in the soon-to-be updated master plan to reclassify it as neighborhood commercial. Right across the street are two properties that are zoned general business. One is a repair shop that's kind of directly across the street, and then the old Mamma Mia's site, which is now vacant, which is a large site, probably 40 acres, of which the vast majority of it's wetland. That's also zoned general business. So there is already property in the immediate area that is currently zoned general business and being used. One of them is vacant, but the other one's being used along the lines of what would be appropriate in a general business district. So Six Lakes Service, which you can see on the screen there, is the repair facility, and then the vacant property to the left on your screen or to the west is the old Mamma Mia site. So that's really where we're at tonight is first reading. I think I see both of the applicants here if you wish to hear from them, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Any questions from the board immediately? I have a few, but I thought I would go to the board first. Okay, my one question is that, this particular area is of particular interest to myself and to the township, is that we have a few pockets within the township that need a little extra attention. And over the years, we were trying to guess today how old a couple of those buildings were. And I don't think anybody really was able to track that down in a short amount of time. But nonetheless, the consistency of going with a general business zoning, I think, would be more appropriate because that's already the zoning that's in that area. I understand the restricted business, but I think the general business would be an appropriate zoning for that area simply because it would be consistent with the zoning of other properties within that area. And I know that the township does have an interest in seeing some economic revitalization in that particular area and heading north on Round Lake Road, also up to the site of the old IGA. So ultimately, there'll be some areas there that, need to have a little bit of a pick-me-up. And anything that we can do to entice people to invest in our community and put their blood, sweat, and tears into it is we as a community should try to make it a little easier and knowing that this is what's being done. It's easy for us to, look at things over the years and try to speculate what's best, but we've had so many changes, in particular with COVID and a variety of other market conditions that have happened, that I think the outdoor seating should be eventually become, as we go through our housekeeping and changing, one of the things that would just be part of a site plan submittal and be allowed. I mean, who doesn't want to eat outdoors? I mean, it's the middle of November, in December, was it, in Milford in December, and people were sitting in the plexiglass huts. I don't care, so why not? So I just think we need to look at things differently. It's not to say that we can't put restrictions and time limits on operation, because we are close to residential. But these are just things that this board will ultimately have to make those decisions on. And that's basically my little bit of information on that particular area. I wholeheartedly agree with the findings of the Planning Commission. However, looking at the area and knowing that there's consistent zoning, it made sense to me that this area should be sort of umbrellaed under that particular zoning for economic redevelopment in the future. Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, I guess if the best opportunity for the future of that lot, for the next 50 to 100 years is general business, I would agree with Rick. I would support that. I love the idea of outdoor seating, but just a caution to Stacy. I know there's a process to get it. I don't know what it is, but find out before you do it. And I would also encourage you to talk to our sewer director and find out what's gonna happen to your sewer bill if you add outdoor seating. My guess is it may jump, and I just don't want you to get blindsided. So, that's all I had.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Mr. Noble?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree that this should be rezoned to general business to the points that Treasurer Roman made in the next, 50 years.
The future.
For the future of that area. That's it.
I feel the same way. I have no problem really with either one, except I would be a huge supporter of outdoor seating. It's good to know that they can get there either way. If this did go residential, they go through zoning. I'm glad to hear that staff is already on top of it and working on it, because normally that's a little bit longer process. So I'm okay with general business to support outdoor seating. I think our residents would love that, and I think it's helpful to this particular business in White Lake. I don't know, but I think Six Lakes has been there since the 40s, and they're kind of they are a part of White Lake, and they're probably going to be there forever. So I don't see any reason not to do general business.
Any other comments?
I'm in support of this also for general business.
Okay. Mr. Ruggles?
I agree also. I mentioned at the planning commission that I would be in favor of general business then. I'm in favor of it now. I don't have an issue with it.
Any other question or comment from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Ruggles, would you care to make a motion?
Sure. I will make a motion to move to second reading the rezoning request. I think it's going to second reading, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's two items there because you guys sort of.
What's,
Make sure you know there's two items, two motions.
what are the two motions?
Separate items.
Well, this one will be move it to general business.
I know, but I mean, Sean said he combined them when he talked about them, they're on the agenda.
Okay, Mr.
I mean, I guess what you would just want to do is cite the addresses for the two that have an address and the property ID number for
I'm
the
going to read
third
all
one.
three of them off. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to move to second reading, a rezoning request for parcel number 12-35-476-004, commonly known as 9266 Cooley Lake Road. The rezoning request is to rezone from local business to general business. The second parcel is 12-35-476-021, 9260 Cooley Lake Road, which is currently zoned LB, and the rezoning request would be general business. The third parcel is 12-35-476-050, no common address, currently zoned NB-0, neighborhood business office, and it would be rezoned to general business.
Okay,
Support that.
we have motion, we have support, roll call vote.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Clerk Noble, yes.
Unanimous. Move on to second reading. You're
Yeah,
very
and just,
welcome.
if I could really quickly, so
Yes, sir.
these require 2 readings, so at the next board meeting, that's when the final action or second reading happens, and then the process is done.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. 9B, 9C, request to approve Ginkgo Storage preliminary, is that Ginkgo? Did I say that right? Ginkgo
think so.
Storage preliminary site plan. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. This is located on a vacant property on White Lake Road, and you can see it kind of at the center of your screen right there. It's the very first one east of Coastal Parkway. This is a 2.14 acre lot zoned light manufacturing. This project was at the Planning Commission meeting on February 1st, seeking both preliminary site plan approval as well as a special land use, which is required for storage facilities. At that time, the Planning Commission approved the request for special land use and recommended to the Township Board approval of the preliminary site plan. There are a couple of items, and you may have seen it on the review letter, and I'm happy to go through it if you'd like. I know you guys generally prefer a summary, but on both the west side of the property and on the south side of the property, the ordinance requires berms to be installed. There isn't room on this site plan for the southerly berm to... Computer's probably lagging here. I think there's an internet connection issue tonight too. So while we wait for it to come up, on the southerly end of the property adjacent to White Lake Road, they can meet the planting requirements in that kind of buffer area, that kind of green belt out in front. They don't have room to build the berm per the ordinance. That's out to White Lake Road. And then on the west side of the property, which you can kind of see, I don't know if you can, it's still not, on the westerly side of the property where it abuts the neighboring homes, there's a bit of a grade differential, maybe 8 or 9 feet even, and trying to fit a berm in there with a grade change, as well as the fact that going in and grading that area out could either require the removal of or the disturbance of kind of the root system of some mature trees. They were asking to not be required to berm it. You can see there's a pretty robust landscape plan. I don't want to speak for the applicants or any of the neighbors who, I don't know if the neighbors are here tonight, but I walked out of the meeting with them and had a brief conversation in the vestibule. There's some needle cast going on some of the existing trees on the west side of their property line at the neighborhood, on the neighborhood's common area. And there was talk about maybe working together to replant some of the off-site trees to help with some of the screening. And the neighbors seem to be pleased with that. And I think that, you know, as they move ahead, if tonight they're successful in getting preliminary site plan approval, the neighbors will probably attend the ZBA and probably talk about some of the things they're planning on working together to address some of those screening concerns on the westerly side of the property. This is on septic and well, so there really are no utilities, public utilities on this site, and it's a fairly quiet use. These are one-story buildings that's not climate controlled. I don't expect a ton of traffic. The hours of operation are, do you remember?
It's, the facility would be closed between 10 PM and 6 AM every day per their special land use approval.
So that's, you know, some storage facilities, people are coming all hours of the night. That will not be the case here. It's got an automated gate system like most of these facilities do. There's not even an attendant that's there all the time when it's open. People have access, and they make all these arrangements according to the owners online, and don't even have to meet a human to rent some space sometimes. So it's really an appropriate use for the area, fairly quiet use. And again, the neighbors didn't have a concern about the use. I think they were okay with it because there are a lot of other uses in the LM district that could have been a lot more disruptive. It was more of just sort of that buffering and getting some of that landscape and that separation just right. So I know the applicants are here tonight. If you have any questions for them, and certainly we have the ability to answer any questions you might have for us.
Okay. I am very familiar with the site in that area, and I go down Coastal Parkway probably about once every couple of weeks. I have some friends that live back there. I think it's probably a pretty good use for that particular spot. I don't think it's going to be really an obstruction to anybody. And again, with the business restriction on time, it's virtually going to be tombstone quiet at night. And if they can work together with the Planning Commission on the screening on the other side, it just makes sense to put it on the berm that's already existing. That it doesn't make sense to not utilize that particular area, especially if they got some trees that are having some issues.
Well, the other thing, with the grade change being 8 or 9 feet, the neighborhood is higher, so planting at the top of that slope rather than
Hide
the
the
bottom.
buildings.
That's right.
Yeah.
So to plant an 8 or 10 foot high tree will give the effect of a tree that's much taller when looking from the neighborhood into that area, into one-story buildings.
I didn't see any issues with the site plan. I think the buildings are pretty much commonplace anymore. We see them here or there. It's in a decent part of the township that it'll be the least obtrusive to everyone and hopefully be successful to the community. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Entertain a motion?
I would just request again that your motion include, make I guess, notation or include in your motion that this is subject to getting approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals as well.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah, sure, I can make a motion. How many variances do they need?
2.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the Ginkgo Storage preliminary site plan subject to getting the variances from the ZBA and all the staff and consultants' recommendations.
I will support that motion. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moving along. Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, next item. Request to approve IT managed service contract renewal with VC3, March 1, 2024 to March 1, 2027. And we're going to have a brief presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know White Lake has been a client of IT Right, now VC3, for close to 10 years. It's been a long-standing relationship. The last couple of years has been a little challenged since the merger with VC3. I do have to say I've worked with Trish pretty much on a daily basis. We talk a lot. And just an absolute pleasure to work with. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of recap, if you go to the next slide there, the services that we're doing now. We've improved over the last 2 years. Our security operations center is new. We now monitor all of the traffic in and out for security. That way we can identify threats faster internally and not have to rely on a third party. We do monitor 24/7, all of the computers, the entire network, the servers. We've automated all of the updates now, including BSNA, and all of the Windows security patches. We've added backup for Office 365, which was not being backed up by Microsoft. So that's a new program that we've added. And what we call SAS alerts. SAS alerts are another form of watching traffic in and out And if there are, let's say, login attempts from another country, it actually can pick those up and stop those. So that's been new. A lot of these things, I'm not going to read through the whole list. I think you have the presentation in front of you. But these are all things that we've been doing. The next slide kind of shows you some things that you may not know. We are implementing a new service for automated monthly reports that would go to Trish. We're very close to rolling that out. We also have developed a single pane of glass for everything IT, and you'll have your very own page to go to access anything IT related, whether it's reports, training, requests, anything like that. Over the last 2 years, we've worked on a form to automate new hire people that have departed the township. And then it automates all of that on our end so that everything gets taken care of in an orderly fashion and we don't miss things. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's been working pretty well. We've probably eliminated 99% of the problems there. We've developed a centralized quoting team so that one person isn't doing all of the quotes for Michigan. We now have a team of, I think, 9 people company-wide that do all of the quotes. So we're getting quotes turned around instead of in a week to usually about a day and a half. We have a new projects team that's been working on individual projects, let's say a server replacement or a firewall replacement. And their job is to go through and verify all of the information that's given to them prior to the project to ensure that it goes smoothly. We have an automated FOIA request form that's being launched right now. We've added a layer of management for the service desk and for our field technicians so that there's someone responsible for scheduling, making sure people are showing up on time, getting scheduled faster. We've separated a procurement team. All they do is order. So when Trish approves an order for the township, we have a team of people that process that order, get with the vendor, make sure that it gets here timely. There are a lot of other things too. We have a new deployment team, and all they do is run around the state and put in new computers. There's 2 of them right now. We're hiring a 3rd. So the time to deploy just PCs or workstations or laptops is being cut down dramatically. I think about a year ago, we were out almost 6 months to put a server in. We're down to about 3 weeks. So I know it's been a long road to get here, but we are making tremendous strides. The next slide is really one of the key things that we focus on, and that's the strategic alignment process. Basically, that's 90% of my job. And we're taking 90 categories that are industry best standards and practices, and we're making sure that all of our clients come up to that level. Now, we may not hit all of them, but we do have a plan to work through that. Trish and we've gone through that list and made notes on every single thing that you have currently and identified some of the things we want to probably work on. So I'm not going to go through all the details of this slide, but it's our way to evolve and try and help you with budgeting, road mapping IT out 4, 5, 6 years instead of just doing it as we go. Now we'll kind of get into are there any questions about what we're doing, what we've changed, anything like that?
Tom, can you talk about a little bit about the increased response time and what you've done there to help that?
Yeah. So So about a year ago, we developed what's called our FCR team. That stands for First Call Response. And the FCR team are very junior level technicians, probably right out of school. They don't have a lot of certifications, things like that. The great part is they will take the phone call within 2 minutes and they will create the ticket. They understand the technology and can create the ticket correctly. And there are about 70 items that they can fix within 15 minutes. It goes beyond that. They're to hand everything off to the Michigan Help Desk, just the way they always have. And that local help desk is the level 2 and 3 technicians. These are the guys with all the certifications and letters behind their name that I don't understand either. But that handoff has a new process where it's a live handoff. We were trying to do it just through tickets and it just wasn't working right. And we've identified that as a problem. They've instituted new procedures there. So things are getting handled much quicker. It didn't help that we had a huge backlog of tickets when we merged with VC3. And that backlog was really holding us back. But we've staffed up our help desk. We've got quite a few new people. They've worked through that backlog and we're down to where we can respond to those level 2 and 3 tickets within 4 hours. It's much, much better than it was. Have we eliminated every problem? Probably not. There's always ways to improve. And I always joke with Trish, she's always calling me about little things and I'm like, well, that's how we get better. As we talk about the little things and we fix little things here and there, and next thing you know, you're at the next level. So that's kind of what we've been doing to help the support issues that we've had over the last couple of years. Does that cover it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen, there has been a dramatic increase, so we do have some things to iron out still.
Yeah.
You're going to have to speak into the microphone there because no one can hear you.
Saying that we
How you doing?
worked through a lot of, you can hear me?
Is it on? You might need to go up to the stand.
I was just saying we've progressively been working on these issues and keeping an eye on, and I've seen a dramatic increase in the turnaround. There are some areas that still need a little attention, not necessarily with the timing, but just in sometimes the communication of maybe what the problem is. I'm starting to notice that maybe the laymen here that are making the requests may not understand sometimes even how to relay what the issue is, and it's just going back and forth. So there's some room for improvement, but the timing for their response time has dramatically increased. So that's all I wanted to say.
Don't go too far in case anybody has questions.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. I think we have made tremendous strides. There are times when communication could always be better. I think that's in any situation, especially in technology. I'm not a technician. My background is in business, so sometimes I struggle with it because technicians can talk in language we don't understand. We do try and hire to character. So if someone can talk to someone and ask questions, that's what we hire to. And we can train techs. We can train them to do the technical part. It helps if they have a little skill, but the big thing is communication. And we want to just continually improve that. So, questions so far? Because then we're going to get into the price increase and the money and all of that. The big ugly stuff.
You may as well get into the blood and guts. Go ahead.
Let's do it. All right. So, as you know, we're asking for quite a substantial increase this year. Over the last 10 years, there have been very modest, if any, increases. That kind of goes back to the old IT right days where we just didn't raise prices, as we probably should have been. So what we've done, instead of, here's a huge price increase, let's stagger this out over 3 years to get to $80 per machine, per user, which is, in our company, our standard rate starts at $160 per user and goes up from there. But in Michigan, we're trying to hold that down to $80 a seat, which is still about half of the industry standard. So we are asking for an increase to $80 a seat, and currently you're at $37. So that difference is going to allow us to hire more people, hire more staff, do some extra training, things like that, invest in new technology that's going to be more secure, more cutting edge. I think we've got, yeah, that's the one where we're talking about the $80 a seat. This would run or start February 28th of this year, and then it would be staggered for 3 years to 2027, where just a standard cost of living or 4% increase would take over at that point. Then we don't have to worry about going through this whole thing again, because the increases would be built in, which IT Right never did. So the next slide there.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Per seat? What's per seat?
Per seat is per machine,
Per machine.
per server, per workstation,
Laptops.
laptops.
Yeah.
So like this right here?
Yep.
Just
We do
'cause
not charge for tablets, cell phones, the switches, firewalls, that's all included.
Tom, is it only that they're EVPNing in or any laptop? It's
It,
just,
it's anything connected to the network.
okay.
You,
The network.
yeah, so if you have access to the township network, we want to make sure that that PC is secure.
We have about, what, 103?
I believe that's accurate.
That's for police, fire, general township, and senior center.
That's 80 a month, per month. Yep,
80
Correct.
Per month, per endpoint.
per endpoint.
Yep.
Endpoint, whatever you want to call it.
So this is 80 a month,
Correct.
just having this here.
Correct. That's for all of the security tools, all of that.
That's your monitoring, your backups, your service calls, you know, all of that
Right.
stuff.
And you do have unlimited help desk 24/7 now, which we did not have as IT Right. Now we run 3 shifts of live technicians that if you're working at 2 a.m, you can call the number and get someone live.
So extra things would be like, we need a new server, so they have to build the server. That would be labor to build the server. We are moving into a new building, for them to move everything into the new building. There would be labor associated with that would not be
Right.
included in this quote. So just to help any.
Nobody can hear you. Can you go up?
You're going to have to just stay up there.
Step here.
Just trying to explain the difference between what a labor charge would come into play if we were, for example, moving into our new building and moving all of our equipment, our servers, all of the towers. And/or, for example, when we did our new servers to build the server.
Oh, there we go.
There,
Oh.
it's on.
Now we have sound.
I was wondering why I couldn't.
Now it sounds too loud. So those types of things would be additional labor outside of the contract.
Yeah, I can take it from there. if
Okay.
you like.
That's an additional expense, having the stuff.
We've
moved.
always charged for projects separately, firewall installs, server installs, bigger projects that take an architecture team and a projects team. So the special consideration on the next page, the next slide, actually takes that into account. And what we would do, and I think you might be able to explain this a little bit better. I'll try. But what we would suggest is over the price increase, the staggered 3-year price increase, we would add 20% to that. All labor would be included. Server installs, the building moving all of the infrastructure to the new building. I'm already doing the design of the server rooms at no charge. I'm working with another company for the low voltage. They do all of the cabling for us, and then they hand it off to us, and we put in the hardware. And we would try and utilize everything that we could here and move it over to the new building. There may be a couple things that we would have to quote for the other building. Generally, if we did the special consideration, completely optional, but if we did that, then the only other expense you would have would be hardware. So if you wanted to buy a new server, a new laptop.
And software.
And software, yeah. Adobe comes to mind, because we buy that separately outside of VC3, because we can't get Adobe. But on average, you generally are billed for about 5+ project hours a month. If you take the whole year and the big projects and average it out, it's about 5 hours a month. And that's where the 20% comes from, is we would take your volume now and include that, and then anything over that, we would not.
So I just want to say, knowing that if it's, the labor is a way to lock in the project costs for the move, for all of the, if we get new computers and we have a mass install of computers, he's saying that we're averaging that 20% now. And then we know that that's going to be above that when we do the move. If we're probably due for new computers in a year or two. And then if we had to have a new server, that kind of thing. So just kind of explaining that.
Yeah, Sean needs a new one now.
So if I can just pause and put in a note, I just don't want you to move ahead with incurring any costs, because respectfully, we don't have to have VC3 move or build our server. The board could approve a different company to do that. So I just don't want you to be designing things and engaging people without, any approval from the board, because we haven't.
No,
I would
we
actually
wouldn't
like
do
to
that.
look at other options for servers and moving that and building that when we go to the new building.
I don't.
Better just stay up there.
Better stay up there, girl.
We've typically had them rebuild our servers, and we've always brought it here to the board first.
I'm just putting it in
Yeah.
as a
Yep.
footnote.
Yep.
We can
Yeah.
go out to bid for that. We can explore other options when it comes time.
Yeah, and we can, as far as moving our equipment,
Other companies move servers.
right, but it's not just servers, it's every desktop and laptop. I'm just saying our company that we use every day might be the one that knows us the best. Yeah, so, but I'm not saying that doesn't preclude you from getting other bids. Now, I don't know if our contract locks us into that. I mean, so you'd have to tell me that, if that does preclude us in any of your terms.
I can speak to that. Randy Allen, thank you. Obviously you can buy hardware from anywhere. There's nothing in our contract that says you have to buy hardware from us. We like to be able to assess it so that we're making the best decision for the township as far as like what the specs are. But once you have the specs, take them, put them out to bid, get the best price. I encourage you to do that. As far as the actual installation goes, that's where you don't want too many hands in one cookie jar, because your cybersecurity is paramount. And so, who gives you the hardware? Fine, but you're going to want one company, us or someone else, to be responsible for your cybersecurity, for the installations, for the monitoring software. And that's where you don't want to mix and match. I've been in a situation in a township not too far from here physically, but I'm not going to name it. But I've been in a situation where there was multiple hands in the cookie jar. There was the treasurer's department had one IT company and someone else had someone, and it was a nightmare, because you don't know, there's no accountability at that point. You got two different ticketing systems, you got that sort of thing. So other than that, I'd avoid that, but absolutely with hardware, 100%.
Yeah,
would
the
do.
hardware we want to.
Yeah, I'd like to say also, we just spent time over this past year cleaning up things at the fire department that were not done by them because they weren't installed properly. So as far as equipment, yes. As far as security for installation, whether it's them or another company, whoever is our IT company is probably the people that should be doing the installation of it, is whoever we choose to be our IT company. Just, for the reasons that he said, so.
I've got a question. So per se, you were to get the contract, the building's built, the new building, we have, we're still working. How would you make that transition to go live from here to there without a hiccup?
Well, we've been involved in multiple building relocations in the past, so we've just got experience doing it. So, we plan accordingly. A lot of times when you're doing a building move, you're doing it during the weekend. You're moving your key components during the weekend. The first day of go live, you're generally standing up the core departments, and it's not always the department head, right? But the core department people that need to be stood up for the township to be operational. So we plan that all out well ahead of time with our projects, and design architecture team plans all that out. Trish will get a roadmap well in advance of it happening. The board will have a roadmap well in advance of it happening so that you'll be able to review that and approve it and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like Randy said, it all comes down to planning. I've already been heavily involved with the architects, all of that, trying to map out where everything's going to be in the racks, who's doing what, getting an idea of what we're trying to accomplish so that we can go to our projects team and our architecture team and have them build that whole plan and roadmap.
Okay.
About the only thing left is just kind of an overview of who we are. This would be the overview of costs for year 1, 2, and 3 with the respective increases with and without the optional labor consideration in there. It'd be a 3-year agreement, so.
Mr. Roman?
Yeah, thanks for coming out to present, you guys. I've been relatively happy with VC3. Of course, when you have a computer issue you want it fixed yesterday, and that just doesn't ever happen, and I guess that's just the way it is. But that said, I don't think we're planning on bidding this out. And it looks like the fee actually more than doubles in 3 years, and so I hope you guys are open to some negotiation, maybe especially in regard to that labor coverage. I'd love to see it 10% instead of 20%. And then I have to ask you too, are you guys flexible in regards to the terminology, all the terms and conditions in your contract? Because I know when our attorneys see stuff like that, we're gonna get pages and pages.
I'm gonna let Randy talk the contract language.
I'm just hoping you guys are flexible, because
That's
No
the part,
names.
That's the part I'm here for. And I'm not an attorney, so, but I've dealt with them long enough. So yeah, you're right. I gave Trish a printed copy of the master service agreement, which is all the legalese that's in there. And I've already encouraged her to take that to the attorney and have him or her go crazy and just redline it and make whatever notes they want to make.
beautiful. I appreciate your flexibility. And then the only other thing I ask, and I'm only one board member, but if you guys can look into sharpening your pencil, maybe help us out somewhat with that labor coverage. That's all I had.
I can take it and then kind of pass that up the chain. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to make the decision myself, but I could take it to the, to the VPs and see what they say.
You had to ask, right?
But yeah, it's fair. So, but happy to do that.
Okay, any other questions from
I have a
trustee
couple of
Smith?
comments. Thank you for coming and your presentation. I appreciate it. I do also want to mention that I appreciate you being very real and taking accountability that you have improvements and there's still improvements needed and wrinkles to iron out. With that being said, I don't think we're there yet to ask for top dollar. So I would like to see this come down. I think this is a huge increase to ask for. You say it endearingly that you talk to Trish a lot, but in my view, that's not good. That means that there's a lot of things that are amiss or, you shouldn't maybe need to lean on Trish so much to work things out. We often have, we as the board see bumps, and I have experienced bumps in your customer service myself. I'm glad to hear that you're addressing those and that you've made people, your first responders and you've added shifts and all that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you're striving for improvement. But I think this is just way too big of an increase to ask us when you acknowledge that there's still a lot of hiccups going on.
I would say that we're probably 90% of the way back. We still have a little work to do. I don't think we'll ever get to 100%. I would hate to see a company that does get to 100% because then you coast.
No, I think it's admirable that you are recognizing them, trying to fix them, working on that. I appreciate hearing that from you. I like that very much, but I'm not comfortable with this. It's too much of an increase to ask at this time. So unless we can come down to some negotiations or work on these figures, I'm being a no tonight. And if I'm the lone no, that's okay. But this is just way too much of an increase.
And believe me, I talk to Trish a lot, and I do, but it's always trying to improve something.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be addressing issues, and now we're improving.
But I think that's only just very recent.
Yeah, it's probably been in the last 6 months, yeah.
And we've been in a contract for 3 years, kind of bumping along. So, so that's where I'm at. I appreciate you working hard to make improvements, and but I can't go along with this increase.
When does the current contract expire?
It's already expired.
It's expired.
It's expired.
So I've held them off for a few months, just paying them monthly to see how things are going and just kind of discussed it internally that maybe it's not the best time to do a new company with a new building coming on board, but.
Could you please go back up the mic? No one can hear you.
So is the,
So I actually would have liked to see this bid out, and I'd like to have had the opportunity to explore other companies.
is the monthly payment plan an option? Can that just continue?
Well, we can pay them monthly, and we can also try to modify the contract so that we have, like, instead of maybe a 90-day clause or something. So there's things that we can do to see if they're agreeable to. We still have they do have a lot of other recommendations. They have started looking at the contract, Lisa's law firm. And so those are things that can be worked on, and we can do that if they're agreeable to it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, with all of the work going on with the new building and things we run thin and getting pulled into things, and with them designing things for the new building, I'm not sure if it's the best time to go out for bid, knowing that I've seen comparables over the last few years, and they do come in this range and higher, and there might be a few that are lower, not sure if just because they're lower, they're better or worse, or higher, they're better or worse. So those are all things you'd have to vet. But I think if we get to a point where we can get them to agree to 90 days notice instead of like having a cause for breaking a contract, then maybe that's the way to go.
Any questions or comments from the board? Andrew Voorhees?
So this is, I agree with everyone else. I'd like to see the labor come down a little bit, but at the same time, if this contract as is, regardless of the labor, continues through 27, correct? Yeah, March, yeah. You would definitely probably, or you would take the lead in our new building. Because I don't want them to, like you said, because I don't want to piecemeal it together. I want you to continue on in doing it. So I'm okay other than the labor.
And that's the road we've started down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we need to get started on it now, rather than wait till the last minute. So we just said we were gonna do it at no charge, just let's get it done, let's start planning.
Yeah, sitting on the, you good?
Yeah, I'm done, thank you.
Sitting on the construction committee, I will tell you that I know you've played an integral part in our planning, and we certainly appreciate that. There's a lot of things going on here. So I don't like to change horses in the middle of a race. I do believe, however, that the numbers, just based on where we've been and where we're going, it's a considerable bump.
It is.
But I think there's a potential resolution here if I do my math, okay? And I would entertain a motion. If there's any further discussion, I'd like to make a motion.
Does your motion entail lowering that price?
Motion will kind of explain things.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor. Did you say you were looking for a motion?
No, I'd like to make a motion if there was no more discussion.
Well, I would support postponing the contract for a month just to see if VC3 can come back and sharpen their pencils somewhat.
I would support that.
I
And
would
that
be
might
a no
give
today on approving the contract.
some
but,
time too.
I'm not opposed to that, okay? So if you guys can go back, I'm not opposed to doing that either. So with that being said, we can make a motion to allow, you want to make a motion to allow them to come back?
I would make a motion to postpone the contract for a month and to allow the attorney to work with VC3 to see if we can iron out some of the legal terms and bring this back in March.
That sounds good. I support that.
We have motion, we have support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Coming out.
Thank you, and
Appreciate it.
I'll get information for the attorney from Trish, and we'll work all that out.
I have everything, and I've
Okay.
already reviewed it. We're writing a letter because we don't have it in Word, so the redlining is difficult.
Okay.
But we'll write a letter to you outlining the issues.
Oh, perfect. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next item, 9E, request to approve Triangle Trail Construction Bid Award. Oh my God, it's about time. We're actually going to build a trail, okay? You know, Moses.
Are we?
Got to cross the desert faster than we're building
love
this
that.
trail.
Is that a motion?
I'll support
That's a motion.
that.
You'll support that? Okay, so, Mr. O'Neill.
I'm actually going to let Justin handle a bunch of these parks things. He's
Phew.
really worked hard on them, and he's done a nice job.
No.
I don't know about that, but no. So you have several parks-related items on your agenda tonight. The first is an exciting one, awarding a contract for construction of the Triangle Trail. The board has been working on this for a long time. The project was out for bid in January. We only received one bid from Fonson Company. They were the contractor who built the two roundabouts on Elizabeth Lake Road last year. Their proposal was, and our bid package was separated into two project areas, Elizabeth Lake Road and Tegadyne as the base bid, and the M59 piece as the bid alternate. So the price for the base bid was $386,000. The alternate bid for M59 was $220,000. Total price of just over $605,000. The wasn't totally out of line with our cost estimate that was done, I think, by DLZ a year and a half or maybe 2 years ago. 10% or 11% over. The Fonson contract or proposal had a couple of additional items in there that DLZ adjusted when they took a look at it. So we are recommending that you move forward with both the base bid and the alternate bid because the project's not getting any cheaper, plus an 8% contingency. So total cost of $653,848.74. Be glad to answer any questions.
I have a question. Why was it broken up into two bids?
In case the township didn't want to do a portion of the project based on cost, so the M59 piece, it's more difficult because of all the commercial driveways, and especially at the corner of Teggerdine and 59, getting across there's a ditch there. So that's a challenging area, which is why we bid that out as an alternate.
Were you surprised there's only one bidder?
Not, well, we were hoping there would be a few. We thought that basically the project is smaller in nature, so to get a company to mobilize to come out and put in a mile and a half of pathway, we were hoping for two or three, but at least we got one, and I know DLZ has contacted the road commission as a reference for them, and the roundabouts were done satisfactorily, so I think they're a capable contractor to do the work.
And the price of these are within pretty close numbers of our engineer's original bids. It doesn't surprise me. I know on my bid, I think there was 10 or 12 or 15 plan holders.
Over 35.
Over 30, excuse me, I stand corrected.
Yeah, Scott, I was surprised at only one bid.
Yeah, and we received only one bid, but the difficulty is that there's still a lot of work out there in the marketplace right now. And some of the contractors are able to pick and choose what projects that they ultimately want to work on. And we've had some difficulties with some other contracts that the township has put out there, getting people to respond for different reasons. This is just the market that we're in. And if the number was way over the top, I think this would be a whole different conversation. I don't even think it would come to this board. But seeing that when the contract came back and we put both of the phase one, and I'll call it phase two, the 59 phase together, sort of made sense to go ahead and move forward with this because A, it's not going to get any cheaper, and B, it will give us a contiguous 2.2 mile trail, which is going to be real important, which will ultimately tie into Stanley Park and the township complex as a whole. So it isn't going to get any cheaper, and we do know the type of work that this company does. I'm very happy that they did put a bid in for this project. So, and there are some other projects that we're hoping that they may be able to get involved in through the bidding process, but we'll see where that pans out. So it's a recommendation from the Planning Commission?
The Parks Committee did recommend, they reviewed this as well. They recommended the Township Board approve it, and the department's recommendation is approval as well.
Okay, all right.
So I have a question, I guess, for the board. If we approve this tonight, how do we intend to pay for it?
We have reserves.
Reserve money? General fund money?
No.
No.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec? Parks and Rec has money now to pay for this?
Yeah, I'd like to
Correct.
speak up if I could.
Yeah. Well, that'll probably come into the second part.
Because, most of the money is earmarked for the Stanley Park. I mean, Mr. Ruggles is correct. If the, 9, whatever it is for the Parks and Rec bond, if the board did not approve that, we'd have to take out some general fund money to do both projects.
To do both,
Yeah.
yeah, Stanley Park and this. We'd have to do general fund.
Yeah, we would need some general fund money.
But this is some of the trails that the residents of White Lake have wanted.
Absolutely agree.
I agree with you.
No, we need to move forward with this. It's just been way too long in the making, and, we have people talk to each and every one of us about wanting to expand our trail network and our trail system, which another part of our meeting tonight will discuss potential future of some of those resources for doing that. And I think that we have an opportunity here to move forward with that, and in a sense, an obligation, because there was a millage passed to produce some trails, and we did fill in a few places along the way throughout the township, but this would be a substantial completion of a loop that actually people would really be able to utilize. and also be the starting point, the jumping off point for the tentacles to go out further from the system from this trail. So ideally, some conversations been had with the Pontiac Lake Recreation in the state of Michigan to get a trail up Tigerdyne to there, and ideally to get a trail west to Highland Recreation Area. So it'd be ideal to have those three parks interconnect and perhaps one day all the way up to, can't get it up, not Spring.
Springs.
Thank you. Up off of White Lake Road. So we would be really the only township that would ultimately have 4 parks connected by a potential long-term, trail system plan, which I think would be an ideal, and that would be a deliverable to our residents. This will be a deliverable to our residents. We're in a position to move forward. I would like us to see us do that, and then again, we're going to get into another bit of conversation about some of the other pieces and parts. Mr. Roman, what's the current balance in the Park and Rec Fund?
Well, we've got about 1.8 million.
Correct.
Just about 1.8 million. And keep in mind with the Stanley Park project, we've got, is it a $500,000 grant money that will come in? So you're up to 2.3 million, and we're looking at spending about 2.7 on both projects. So, there's where there's a will, there's a way, but I believe bonding these out is the way to go.
Yeah, and I agree. If we have a strategic plan for doing that, I think that puts us in a better position.
Should we wait and talk about the bonding till we?
Well, that's
get to
going to
that?
be further down the line, but tonight, right now, this one item is strictly just whether or not we award this contract. So,
I mean, the motion could be subject to the board approving the bond as well. Could be.
Well,
Didn't say it has to be.
Well, the reason I asked
Board
is,
options.
the only reason I brought it up is without a millage being passed, they couldn't service a bond, right?
Well, they got a lot of savings.
For how long?
Yeah. Correct.
that's why we need to get the millage passed, but that's another subject. Okay.
If someone wants to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for the Triangle Trail in the amount of $605,415.50 to be awarded to Fonson Construction. And DLZ is also recommending an 8% contingency for the project to accommodate any arising difficulties during construction. That is in the form of a motion.
I'll support.
So you're adding on the contingency
Yes.
fee? Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
I did state that. I have motion from myself, support from trustee Smith. Roll call vote.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Contingency fee.
Treasurer
I'm a
Roman?
yes.
Okay.
clerk Noble, yes, supervisor Coal.
Yes. Motion carries. Triangle Trail shall breathe
That's
life.
exciting.
Yeah, amen. Okay. Next item is request to resolution 24007 to,
I think you skipped an item.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I know.
Request to award Triangle Trail Construction Administrative Contract to DLZ.
So we have a proposal from DLZ that the township received in 2020. You'll notice it's in your packet. Only half of the proposal was approved back in 2021 for the design work. If you recall, we got a $50,000 grant from the Ralph Wilson Jr. Foundation to pay for 90% of the design costs for the Triangle Trail. So I've communicated with DLZ about the construction phase services of this proposal, which includes construction inspection among contract administration. The proposal price that's in your packet for both options, the base area and the alternate bid, which we would need now that the board's approved both items. It's $47,500. That's their 2020 price. They're holding their 2020 price. I did talk to Mike, and that accounted for 200 hours of inspection time, full-time inspection on this project. I've spoken with a couple of board members since the packet went out who suggested that maybe that amount of inspection might not be necessary for this type of pathway project. So I communicated with Mike, and he sent me some information about a reduced inspection approach, accounting for 100 hours of inspection, and that would take the adjusted proposal price to $37,000 for the project. The parks
37,000 even?
37,000 even for the construction administration. The Parks Committee did review this proposal and recommended approval to the Township Board.
And this is for a pathway, correct?
Correct. This is for the Triangle Trail, the whole trail.
Bikes and walking.
Correct.
So we're talking about 100 hours of inspection on something that doesn't even get vehicles. No offense, Mike, and don't take any of this personally, but it's a lot of inspection in my opinion. And I mentioned it to Justin for, like, when we hire a contractor to put a driveway in at our house and we rely on that amount of vehicle traffic, we don't have an inspection done. I've never had one done, you know, and it holds up. I'm not saying the inspection is worthless, but that's a lot of money for inspection on a pathway. You know, it seems like overkill. I reached out to the road commission. Mike Powell got through to him, actually. And the road commission will be checking on the project.
Not on the pathway.
Yeah, on the pathway.
No, on Elizabeth Lake Road.
Well, I thought he said the pathway. Pretty sure.
I think Elizabeth Lake Road. Rick, do you have an answer on that?
I thought they were gonna check on the pathway.
The only place that they'll have any contact with is where it meets the actual road, but not the pathway itself.
Well, okay. Be that as it may, it just seems like that's a lot of inspection on a pathway. And
Well, we do have it going in a rather convoluted area there on the northern end of Tigerdyne. And then the getting across 59 is going to prove to be a little bit challenging in certain areas, and it's going to require a certain amount of finesse. Is this a not to exceed?
Yeah, correct, Mr. Supervisor. It's a not to exceed. We're happy to work with you in any capacity that you want on this. When it was put together back in 2020, the assumption was that full-time inspection would be desired. If that's not the approach the township wants, we're happy to take a step back. Full-time inspection is not a condition of the road commission permit. Typically, the road commission is not going to watch a pathway because they don't really have interest in long-term ownership over it and maintenance and that type of thing. So the road commission, you have to pull their permit. We've got a permit approval by them. The contractor will pull that permit. And the road commission might stop by to make sure construction activities and signage is appropriate and not impacting traffic and those type of things. But they generally won't take a vested interest in making sure you're getting what you're paying for as far as value of, getting the right stone subbase and getting the right compaction and getting the right cross-section on your pavement and those type of things. And then just to point out, and it is pretty common in a lot of paving projects, a lot of the quantities and the way we pay these contractors are by unit price. So, and in asphalt specifically is like by tonnage. So there is a value to having somebody out there watching them to make sure they're not putting in too much material because you're paying for it in the end of the day. So if they're calling for a 3-inch cross section and they're putting down 4, you're taking a risk on having to pay more at the end of the
Or the other way
project.
around.
Or the other way around, if you're not watching them and they put a thin section in and now it's not gonna last, that's the risk you're paying for. That should come out in the yield calculations at the end because we get load tickets from them and we should be able to say, hey, you didn't put in enough asphalt, but at that point, it's already in.
Yeah, so is it safe to say that, for example, an initial project is staked and cut starts on the pathway and it traverses its course? The inspector may not necessarily be there for every nuance of that, but yet when the bedding of the base goes down, they could be there to make sure the bedding is correct, compaction is correct, and then they could come in and do watch the asphalting, the paving process, and then maybe not return until, final grade and make sure the seeding is done and the restoration is done adequately.
That was kind of covered in the approach I sent Justin, and it's more focused on the value parts of the project, making sure before they put down their stone base that you've got a good compacted subgrade. And then we come back out when they put the stone aggregate base down and make sure that that's proper and compacted. I think watching them when they pave for the asphalt areas is important. On the concrete areas, before they pour, it'd be nice to look at the forms and make sure they've got the right depth of concrete going in. We like to check the cross slope to make sure it's within ADA compliance. So those are the items that we would be looking for.
So that would be a part-time spot inspection?
Right. And with the other items on the agenda and the other work in the area, I can't guarantee it, but there might be opportunities for savings if you've got somebody on Elizabeth Lake Road watching that project. You know, it might line up where you've got some overlap there.
It's a thought process, both projects. Stand a very good chance of running simultaneously. So we actually could save on both projects because now we have one person that can kind of go back and forth.
Seems like, if they were happening at the same time and DLZs on both projects, it would make sense that you would only bill once, right? Or that would be kind of like double dipping.
Well, I would have one inspector spread his time out between the two projects. That's how that would play out. If that opportunity arises. Again, we haven't even talked about the other project yet, so we got to get contractor schedules and figure out when they're going to be there. And I mean, the right conditions have to align, but I'm hopeful that there'll be some opportunities there.
So I guess how this intertwines a little bit with Elizabeth Lake Road is Road Commission will have their own inspector on that project. So that is kind of then double.
Well, no.
That's a gray area unless you guys have more information on that one, but.
Yeah, I have. They do intermittent checking. And they're not going to provide a full-time inspector for that project, okay?
But they will provide inspection.
Well, I would not rely on them in their entirety for what's to be done. I think that's not being very cautious. I think that we need to have that, but we'll get into that on the next one. But irregardless, I think the pathway, because we are going to be bound by ADA requirements and other pieces and parts of this that are going to have some unique nuances, we should have them in place because this way they assure that that particular work gets done the way that it's initially designed. And they have their standards. They know what it needs to be built to. They know the ingredients that go in to make the cake. And they would be the best ones to keep an eye on it to make sure that it's done correctly.
So for the ADA, of course, that should be inspected and monitored for safety. That's like a no-brainer. But I think we're just trying to look to see, if we can bring down costs at all. And we certainly don't want to bring down quality in that, So if is there anywhere that you think you can tweak this a little bit on costs?
Well, yeah, and that's what we talked about with trying to concentrate on the areas of inspection that'll bring value to you. We don't want to be out there if it's unnecessary. That's never our intent. So I'd need to know a little bit more about the contractor's schedule and, how long he thinks the duration of construction is. And if he's got staging, we can certainly do our best to keep that time down.
Okay.
That's that number. So, okay, any questions or comments? Andrew, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve DLZ's Triangle Trail Construction Administration proposal for the base bid and the alternate bid with a total not to exceed the 47, but it was
37,000.
10,000.
Just not to exceed.
Not to exceed 37,000.
I will support that. Roll call vote?
Supervisor Coe.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Well, now we got a path and we got an engineer. Okay. All right, very good, thank you. Item G, resolution number 24-007 to approve Park and Recreation Millage ballot language. As you may or may not know, our ballot expired Ballot. Our millage expired December,
2023, so the millage is expired.
yes. So we are now going to be in a position where we need to look forward into the future. And they're going to explain a few things first before we hear from the public. I'll be glad to hear everything that has to be said. But
So the board discussed this at their December meeting, and at the time that there was some discussion about whether to renew and restore the millage or renew and increase it to 0.5 mil. And since that time, staff has worked with our bond counsel on both proposals to renew and restore and renew and increase. The millage language is almost the same. Under the General Property Tax Act, both proposals can be called renewals on the ballot. So again, just a summary from your December meeting, renew and restore to 0.3 mil would bring in approximately $475,000 in the first year. Renew and increase to 0.5 would be approximately $792,000 in the first year. We put together comparables for you, other townships in Oakland County, what they collect. The average millage is 0.68. Trustee Ruggles had asked me a question, what do some communities near us collect annually based on their millage? Commerce collects approximately $980,000 a year, or they did last year. Independence, $875,000. Springfield to the north of us, they have a 0.7 mill rate, and it brings in $600,000 a year approximately. Waterford at 0.46 brings in approximately $1.3 million a year. So that's just a little bit of a comparison to what communities around us are collecting.
Thank you for that.
Parks and Recreation Committee did review this back in December and recommended to the board the 0.5 rate. But again, the board has the option. There's two different resolutions, same resolution number in your packet, just two different versions. There's also a red line version, so you can see the difference. We're happy to answer any questions. And Eric McLaughlin, our bond counsel's here if you have questions regarding the actual millage language itself.
okay, well, I guess we have two things to talk about. Whether we renew and restore or we submit for renew. And Eric McLaughlin, we need to hear from our bond counsel first.
I'm sorry?
We'll need to hear from our bond counsel first. Yeah, so if you can just take a seat for just a few minutes, we'll get to you. Thank you. So Eric?
Morning, or good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, members of the administration. Thanks for having me here. Eric McLaughlin with Dickinson Wright. I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the Parks and Recreational millage. So as Justin introduced, there are two forms of the resolution in front of you. The resolution itself is the same. The ballot proposals are slightly different, and that is just because in one we are renewing the heavily reduced millage back up to the originally established 0.3 mils. And in the second one, we are renewing the heavily reduced millage and also increasing it by slightly more, 0.2155 mils, I believe, up to a half mil. Under the statute in Act 206, the General Property Tax Act, we're allowed to call those both millage renewals. And so that's how they have been presented to you.
But it would still include the word increase.
On the second, the one where the additional millage is more than just what would restore to the originally established level, yes.
Just looking at this from a debt serviceability, if we renew and restore, that gives us $474 a year and some change, and the 0.5 gives us $791. Now, this is a direct correlation to what Mr. Roman stated, and that is if we bond out for I got to kind of go down this road to get back to this road. The 2.7, you're looking at over a 15-year bond, you're looking at $238,000 a year and some change to service that bond. So at 474, that does not give us a whole lot of money. And if we went shorter, of course, that gives us even less money. although we would be accomplishing two major projects, but it would put a shadow on the ability for us to go forward with any further plans, and not only that, just also to maintain our park.
Something
because-
to, yeah,
Yes.
something to keep in mind, and the Parks Committee discussed this as well. At a 0.3 mill rate, what we would collect annually in potential debt service, township is not going to have the ability from money in the park fund to apply for more grants. We won't have the match money, so either the match money would have to come from some other general fund or other places, but it would really limit us on what we could do to apply for grants with park fund money. And Matt, grounds maintenance, the township parks fund contributes to the risk insurance that the township pays, professional fees for staff and consultants for grants. There's electric bills, there's a lot that goes into.
Right.
As you know.
And we're going to have a much larger park with more expenditure that's going
Another
to.
60 acres to maintain.
And more use, and also has a phase two that we would like to see done with additional trails throughout the park, not to mention any other potential project that would be tentacling off the Triangle Trail. So that really would not give us a whole lot of room to do much of anything for the next 15 years.
I didn't understand what you were saying about the match money.
So most grants, especially DNR grants, are very common that we get here for park-related items. They require a match from the township generally, and usually it's 50-50. So for example, at Stanley Park, we got a $500,000 grant, but we're required to match $500,000 as well. So it's going to be difficult with a bond debt service payment annually, plus all of our other expenses just to maintain the current facilities, to save up $500,000 to match another grant.
Because we do have 1.8 million sitting in the bank right now, and we're not using it yet.
Right.
Wouldn't have to use it if you got the bond.
Correct.
Right? It just
And
stays.
that's what I was wondering. If we got the bond.
If you got the bond,
You keep your
you've
money.
got the money in the
the money.
bank.
Yeah, but that's only paying back the debt.
Taking back what debt?
What debt?
The bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have,
Not if we have a new mill.
you're gonna have the new, if the new millage passes, whichever way it passes, you would have monies to service the debt.
And you'll
So that-
still have the 1.8.
So you would, that is correct. But you're still going to minimize the cost of what we're going to be able to do in the future.
Yep.
And that should be very well reflected in what we've seen in some of the quotes that have come in here. And the costs of these things are not going to get any cheaper, okay? And us having the ability to put that out there and let the public decide on it, what they want to do, I think is what we should be doing as representatives of the township. Let the public make this decision. This is, the mood on outdoor recreation has changed immensely. In particular, COVID made a huge impact. More people want to get outside, they want to do more things. We've had every poll that we've done, every survey that we've done, the number one item that comes back is outdoor mobility. Every time, every survey. And that tells me that there's a strong desire by the residents of this community to have that particular amenity. I think we have an opportunity here to put it before them and see what it is that they want to do in August. And if the public decides they do not want that, then we always have November to come back and do a renew and restore, and there may be more of an appetite for that. Persons that I've spoken with, a lot of people are tax fatigued, they're millage fatigued. But the conversation that I had with them when they realized what this is they said, oh, you mean we get to keep our money? We get to put that money back into our own township. We're not sending it to the state of Michigan, and we're not sending it to Oakland County. We're not sending it to here and there in the schools and hither and yon. We actually get to invest in our own community. So I think we should consider allowing the people to at least have that opportunity to make that decision. I think you just might be surprised.
I had a question for Eric, if I could. So, obviously, you've written language for many communities. In a situation that faces us, where we've got really a renewal and an increase, have you seen in communities where they try to go for the bigger millage up front, that millage fails, and then they come back and try to approve a smaller millage? And if you've seen it, does it usually work? Does it fail? Is it an insult to voters that you're coming back a second time, or what have you seen?
Well, I've certainly, in the cases that I've been involved in, I've certainly seen all those sentiments expressed. I've generally been very great. I've been very lucky to have worked with communities where the millage proposals have been supported, either on the bond side or on the millage side. So I have not seen a whole lot that have failed. I can't think of a specific instance where there's been a renewal and an increase, or as opposed to a renewal and restore. But like I said, I've seen all of the sentiments expressed across the board with respect to all the millage proposals and bond propositions that I've prepared.
Spoken like an attorney.
Yeah, that was
You did that
really,
well. Great delivery. Yeah. Yes, please do.
Eric, how do you call it a renewal? Is it because of the nominal increase that's involved in that proposal?
That's correct. State law allows for a proposition to be characterized as a renewal if the renewal plus the additional increase is less than 0.5 mils. So here we have, in both cases, we have an increase that's less than 0.5 mils. In one case, we're going back up to the originally established level. And in the other case, we're priming it just a little bit. Excuse me. But still less than that 0.5 mil threshold, which would require the separation of the questions.
So you could go up to the 0.5 and still call it a renewal?
Right. If you wanted to renew the heavily reduced millage amount and increase it by 0.4 mils, you could do that under the statute. And that's section 211.24F, as in Foxtrot, under the statute.
So it's considered a non-significant increase, according to that?
According to the statute.
The statute, okay. So to put it in layman's terms, for the average person, if you have a house right now that's assessed, they say it has a market value of $375,000.
The increase to at 0.5 would be approximately, if you do it monthly, $3.12 a month on the average
Not even a
household.
large Tim Horton cup.
So Eric, not using attorney language, if I just came up to you as a resident, that would be an increase, correct?
In part.
Not in part, just it's a yes or no.
I think it's sneaky.
It's just yes or no.
I wanna be
Well, hold
honest
on one
with the
second. Hold
voters.
on. It's a yes or no. Is it an increase?
In part, it is.
In part meaning yes.
In part.
In part,
Not
meaning
according to
yes.
the statute.
Well, that's an increase to me.
It's an
Thank you.
increase. So I have some comments, if I may. I think that, I want the record to be very clear, Hannah, that I am for Parks and Rec. I support them, our pathways. I'm for recreation. But I am not for a tax increase to our residents. I do think the last two election cycles, we've had millage increases. I think that I'm just not for an increase when possible. And then the second part to that is, it's not enough to do anything. So it's palatable to say, and people throw that out all the time, it's just a cup of coffee, but a cup of coffee is not enough to do what we want to do. And we owe our residents to deliver. So this small increase is still not enough to deliver what we want to deliver and what this board envisions and what our residents envision. So I really would like to explore the bonding. I'm for the renewal and not the increase. And then I'd like this board to take some responsibility to creatively come up with the funds to actually deliver what our residents want and actually, come through with great recreation in White Lake. And I think we have a chance here if we can creatively, think outside the box and explore bonding instead of an increase.
Mr. Roman.
Yeah, so, just another idea for the board to think about, to go feel out the waters, really see how our voters feel. We could go for just the renew and restore, hoping that it passes. we would be fortunate enough that it did pass, we go ahead and construct the Triangle Trail. We put in Stanley Park Phase 1. There's nothing that says we can't go out for another Parks and Rec millage the following year. So
Well, that'd be like a
Lisa's
special
laughing.
election.
I'm just saying, it's a nice,
Go 2
there's
years.
nothing wrong with that concept either conceptually. At least, you're gonna feel out the waters and see what our residents think
Well,
about.
you bring up a really
Park and Rec.
good point about feeling out the waters. So what I would like to do at this time, we'll come back to the board here. I would like to hear from the public, some of the commentaries. Yes, you may stand and you may be recognized. So Eric, if you don't mind stepping aside for just a minute, we got a gentleman here that wants to express his thoughts and opinion.
Well, hello, Sharks. My name is Irving Shapiro, and I live at Twin Lakes Village. And I'm here to ask you, I am a user of your services. I have 2 German short hairs, and I go to Bloomer every day, Bloomer Park every day. And when I go down the road, they are crying, so excited to get to Bloomer. Why? Because of the ability to walk there. It's manicured, it's taken care of. And from the point of view of the community, I have to tell you, as a resident, it's one of the attributes that makes White Lake special. I did some research for tonight because I was interested in what the authorities talk about in terms of parks and recreation. And there's 5 major items that the authorities identify when they're speaking about parks and recreation. I want to share them with you because I think they're significant in terms of what you need to tell us in terms of charging and doing fundraising. Number 1, it contributes to the community identity. You identify yourself in a unique way against Highland and Heartland and Milford and everybody else because they're competing in order to get our attention. Provide active and passive recreational opportunities. Appeal to all ages. You're young, but as you get older, the kind of services that you have to have in order to get recreation should be tailored. It should be significant. Handicapped. I'm a cancer patient. I could be a stroke patient. Those are the kinds of things that are appealing and make fundraising and make the opportunity for me to want to make a contribution to the community. It contributes to the health and wellness of the community, an opportunity, again, to emphasize good health methodology. And the last one is it creates valuable green space. With all of the hardscape that's going on, there aren't many areas left in which you have dedicated green space. It's an opportunity for Parks and Recreation to actually allocate those kinds of things. So Sharks, I'm going to ask you to make a contribution to our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? State your name for the recorder, please. We don't know who you are.
I know. Mary Early, 5925 Pine Ridge Court. Mr. Supervisor Kowal has already stolen my thunder, but I'm going to go ahead and say what I had to say anyway. John and I are asking the board to approve the ballot language for .5 mils for the August election. Stanley Park is consuming much of the money being spent in the next few years, which will leave other township parks with status quo. There's 2 other words for status quo: stagnant and stuck. A millage proposal for .5 mils would allow for some improvements to be made at the other parks, like Hidden Pines Community Park, Boomer Park, Holly Park, all the others. Money being used to repay bonds or money for already approved grant matching is not available for things such as a pavilion or a paved path at Hidden Pines Community Park. I dug these out. Looking at our tax bills and all of these things on here, you can see that a 0.5 mils is not a lot to put into Parks and Recreation that will be specific to White Lake Township and will satisfy the requests made by residents in our recent surveys and other public input. Regardless, John and I will be working diligently with the Parks and Recreation Department to pass a millage for Parks and Rec. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay, I'm going to close the floor to public. Okay, back to the board. Well, we got a couple people that like parks. So I'm not saying two people tell it all, but it seems to be the tone that I've been running into. I haven't had anyone tell me that they wouldn't support it at 0.5. But
I just got something really quick to say. Our last millage passed 52 to 48. So I'd be more for the park, but it'd be more for the restore and recapture. No offense, Eric, but not the increase. So that's all I'm going to say.
It was close, and I started this conversation, I think, like 2 months ago with Justin, and I know I threw a monkey wrench in his plans. But I have concern as well that it will pass. And like I said, even if it passes, it's not going to accomplish all the things like on Mary's wish list. There's just not enough funds there. The Parks and Rec really needs some bolstering right now. And so even if the just increase passes, it's still not enough. If the renewal and increase passes, it's still not enough. So again, I'd like the board to try to help out the Parks and Rec and make sure that we are able to accomplish these things.
well, the bonding is only a short-term fix, and once that bond is out there, that's it.
Right, but we
Everything
have-
comes to a stop.
We happen to have a lot of projects,
So-
all at once. So I think it'd be helpful.
Well, it will solve the need, but once that project is accomplished, by having the additional funding of $791,000 a year and having $238,000 of that servicing the debt, that leaves you roughly $500,000 a year to move forward and do those things. That's actually more money than we currently draw in now by about $25,000 a year, which may not seem like a lot, but when you're trying to get grants, trying to move forward, and over a period of 7 years, that $3.5 million, dollars, the money just starts to build on itself and will allow us to do other things. We can service the debt and then look at future projects. And then if we had a project that was really, really worthy, we might even be able to bond that one out, but that's only speculation. But I would think that this township should make a commitment. I agree, it should make a commitment. But the only way it's going to do it is if it has the tools in the box. And the tool in the box is the 0.5 millage. That will allow us to move forward, service the debt that Mr. Roman has done some calculations on, roughly $2.5 to $2.7 million, and allow us the room to move forward and do other things that we will find hard pressed to do if we do not go in that direction. And that's what, does concern me. Again, I think the voters here are smart enough, they're educated enough, they know what they want. They will let us know. And if they say no in August, we can always go back in November and ask for a new and restore. This has been done. It's not an uncommon practice. And statistically, we've heard from our bond counsel that he hasn't heard of too many Park and Rec bonds failing, simply because the mood has changed in the environment. It is completely different than what it was pre-COVID. And that is something. I have people that want to have passed on Oxbow Lake Road. That's going to be a real challenge, but nonetheless, they want it. And boy, what a perfect thing. That could swing right off of the Township Triangle Trail off of Tegadyne. So that could get us to the south end of the township relatively quickly. But again, these are all these different opportunities that we can look at that we are going to be finding it extremely difficult to get any momentum and move forward without that funding mechanism in place. So I'm in favor of putting the 0.5 out there and let the public make the decision.
What if it doesn't pass, we go back for this, and then this fails? Then what's the next step? We have no money.
Right.
I don't think it's going to fail. I mean, what's to say this won't
But-
fail?
I mean, I would rather go with the sure thing.
It's not a sure thing.
That's more than the 0.5.
It's-
Statistically speaking, when you got 4 points,
It's not a sure thing.
I would go with my odds with this,
Well,
having the money up front.
That's your opinion, I respect
Should make
that.
a
But
motion to that effect, Anthony.
I just think we're shortchanging the public. Yes,
I'd hate to see
Mr.
us not have
Ruggles.
any money.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have no issue with, hearing what the public has to say on the ballot. I would just be, personally, I would be very hesitant that, it would not succeed, and then coming back in November, they have a sour appetite, when you're asking them right after they voted it down, so.
Yeah, I actually don't think that's wise
So about the
to
school
take two
villages.
swipes.
Just my opinion, but, I'm all for having more money for parks. I said at last meeting, we need more money. If you want to actually accomplish some pathways, then you need more money, Or these projects that are sitting in front of you, and they cost a lot more than 1.8, so.
I'm just worried that in November, we're gonna have voter fatigue with the school millages and all the proposals that are coming up, and then we're stuck with no money. I'm for the parks. It's just I'm worried about voter fatigue. When you're talking 4 points, and that comes back, then you could have a major issue. We have no money. That's my opinion.
Andrea.
If it's the board's will, then,
Yeah.
Andrea.
As your Parks and Rec liaison, I just want to remind everyone that we're a volunteer board. We're so committed to having an increase that we have even talked about having us paid, and we're like, no, we want to be volunteer. That's how much we are committed to keeping our millage money in. I, like Mary, brought my tax bill. Can guarantee I have the smallest house in this board. Not a coffee drinker, but that's probably what I pay, $14.95. And it's gonna go up to a small dinner. I'm not afraid to give my money to a small dinner. I agree. We need it. I don't want to just maintain, I want to grow our parks. With VC3, if I'm giving it the correct name, we are appalled that we went up 20%. The taxpayers would be appalled if we went for 20% in one increase. The smaller increase of 2% is nothing, relatively speaking. I'm all about the increase. Let's grow our parks small. We can't go, have a Ferris wheel, for example, in our parks. We're small. We're not a big park. We have to grow them slowly, not all at one time. And this is a 10 years, so once we only go for the smaller increase or the renewal, we're kind of stuck at that place for 10 years.
You can go back at 8.
Yeah, we can only maintain for 10 years. We can take care of what we have and maintain.
You can go back at 8.
So Andrea, I want to thank the Parks and Rec for being volunteer, but respectfully, that's irrelevant in the equation. Like, for example, the library board is volunteer, non-paid, and they go out to millages and they don't take a salary. So we appreciate the volunteers. And I just want you to be clear, everyone on the board is supporting Parks and Rec, and we want to find a way to have enough funds to maintain and grow. But I think we're all worried, that this isn't a sure win.
But Parks, I was down here, 2 weeks ago, on that really nice Friday that we had. There were probably 25 to 30 people on a Friday at 5:30
It was crap. It was
enjoying
crazy.
the park. I almost wanted to go out and talk to them about it, but I was like, I'm done for the day. But yeah, I was pleasantly impressed on a nice Friday afternoon it's February at this point. They were enjoying Holly Park. So I agree, there's renewed interest in parks. I'm done.
Mr. Roman.
Well, I'm kind of on the fence, okay? But, I'm the one that's got to come up with the darn money to make all these bond payments, okay? And that, not only Parks and Rec, but we're talking about a $29 million bond for new buildings. And I want to give our township the best chance it has to getting one of these two things passed, either a renewal or the increase. And because it's really critical that we get at least the renew, restore passed, that's what I'm gonna support for now. If we can get that passed and we put the Triangle Trail in, we do the Phase 1 Stanley Park, we can always go for another park and rec millage in the future. Can we not?
Yes.
We can.
I see, is it West Bloomfield? They have like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got multiple.
Right.
Look how many school millages you have on your tax bill.
I mean, you don't know. We're all speculating because we have no magic ball. We have no crystal ball, right? But I tend to support, I do support what Mike Roman just said. And I think it's really important to have the stability that we know is, we're pretty sure is going to happen. And then the board takes some responsibility to figure out a way. And thank you, Eric, for coming. I do want to talk a little bit more about bonding, and I think that's the way to go. I've said it a million times now.
But again, that's a very short-term
I know.
solution.
But
With
maybe,
long-term debt service.
maybe we have, we accomplish some things and we earn the support of our residents that way. We unfortunately have this shadow that this board didn't do. I want to be clear, this board had no responsibility in it, but we have a shadow of, pathways promised years ago that didn't happen. And I hear that's what I hear in the public a lot, is why am I going to support that? Because not us, but the board didn't do anything with it. That wasn't accomplished. So I hear that, and I don't want to hear that. I want this board to deliver recreation to our residents, so.
Well, I have heard some people say, and actually come into my office and ask where it's been done, what hasn't been done. The last millage, when it was passed, that was the one that we're talking about doing the renew and restore on. I had persons come to my office and they say, well, what are you going to promise us? And I said, I'm not going to promise you anything, but I promise you get the millage. I'll try to do what I can. But it just wasn't enough money. It's just a reality. But we were able to do a lot of things. Maybe it wasn't a path, but we bought Stanley Park. We did do some paths along 59 in a couple select places. So we did do a few things. But now we've reached a point where we're going to be doing a fairly high profile project. I mean, the Triangle Trail, you can't get any higher profile than that. I mean, that's right in the heart of the township. So that's going to be something we are truly delivering. It took us longer to deliver it because we didn't have the resources. That's why going to the 0.5 will allow more resources to be there so that we don't have to have 8 years between projects. We'll be able to get projects done with a greater sense of urgency and momentum, and also have the resources to match grants without referring to the general fund, okay? And that's the nuts and bolts of it right there. I understand some people are apprehensive of it, but I still think the public here is smart enough to make their decision and see what happens. And I believe the 0.5 in the August primary would be the right thing to do. And I think there's enough people that would build momentum to support it, especially knowing that it's a minimal increase to where they're at right now. So,
That's the problem. It's too minimal.
yeah, it is minimal. Okay, but it's not, you're not solving the problem, Liz, by just bonding. It's not
I know it's
solving.
not a
And the township,
catch-all.
the
I get
township
that.
is
It's not
going
a
to be.
catch-all. But
is-
I prefer to go slow and steady, go for the steady, sure foundation. And if that goes well, in 2 years, we can go for another one and increase
I
it.
appreciate that, but we're actually going backwards if we don't.
I kind of like what Treasurer Roman said. I like the renew, restore. He's the one that has to come up with the money, well, not theoretically, but in charge. And I'd like, I kind of like to be conservative towards this. And we've got a big task ahead of us with the township hall. I mean, we're going to have to value engineer coming down the road again. So,
Yeah, I'm all for an increase in Parks and Rec millage, but let's at least get back what we had first. That's
how I
all
feel.
I'm saying.
And then perhaps in 2 years, ask for an increase?
Yeah, or next
Yeah.
year, I mean, whatever
But you have
it
to do it in
is.
2, otherwise you have to pay for a special election.
Is it 2 years?
2 years
Yeah.
before we
The way-
do it.
So we're just gonna maintain our parks and do the basics for the next 10 years.
We can still bond out again next year if we wanted to do another project, correct, Eric?
But you're, with, how are you gonna service it?
With millage money,
How are you gonna maintain the parks?
with millage money and savings. But you're talking about going out for another millage, right? For an increase
No, I'm
in
talking.
2 years?
I'm talking about doing the 0.5 millage now, and that will set us up for the future, and we won't have to worry about that.
Well, yeah, and if you could guarantee me that that'll pass, I would agree with you.
Right, yeah.
I can't guarantee you the sun is gonna come up.
We can't even guarantee that the renewal restore is gonna pass. I mean, nobody knows, but
Well, somebody needs to make a motion.
Liz?
I'll have that in front of me.
There's something.
Do it on both. I want a motion on both items of action.
What's both?
I don't think
Yeah,
you
what do you
did that.
mean?
There's two potentials. The one is the 0.5, and the other one is the renew and restore.
But if,
How do you do them at the same
I
time?
don't think you do that.
if you make one motion and it passes,
Right.
you can't make the second motion when
Yes.
you.
I know that.
So you would do one motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion
Go ahead.
to approve the, renew and increase at 0.5 mils. That's the motion.
Roll call vote.
I
It
need
doesn't have
support
support.
first.
I'll support it. Okay. Sorry. I'll support it. Roll call vote.
Treasurer Roman,
I'm a no.
Clerk Noble, no. Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell's absent. Trustee Smith,
No.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
No.
Motion dies.
Okay, I'll make another motion to approve the Parks and Rec millage renew and restore and to approve resolution 24-007, that resolution that applies to the renew and restore.
Support.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
No.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
and Treasurer Roman, sorry.
Yes.
Motion carries. That'll be the language.
Thank you, Eric, for coming. I appreciate it.
Well.
Mine was a yes
You're not
also.
leaving yet, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need you one more time.
Item H, discussion Stanley Park Phase 1 bids and alternates.
So we received 4 bids for Stanley Park Phase 1. The tabulation of the bids is in your packet. The low base bid was 1.7 million approximately. On the high side, it was 2.9. There were 5 alternates that were bid out as part of the project. Alternate 1, paving the full road. Right now, it's only partially paved down the hill through the, by the block building, and then the ADA parking spaces and barrier-free spaces would be paved as well. Timber traffic control bollards, that's alternate 3. Additional parking, I skipped that, that was alternate 2. Alternate 4 is an additional exercise station. Alternate 5 is a sidewalk connection to Elizabeth Lake Road and the Civic Center. Alternate 3 and alternate 5 have to be done as part of the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that we received. So the memo was written for discussion purposes, but I did talk to the DNR. Generally, they have to approve what the township is going to award to a contractor before the contract's executed. But if the board wants to take action tonight, it can do that, subject to the DNR approval prior to the supervisor executing the contract. So if you want to go through any of the pricing or the alternates, we'd be happy to do so. Parks and Recreation Committee's recommendation was to award a contract to STE Construction. They were the low bidder with alternates 2, 3, and 5. The additional parking, the traffic control bollards, and the sidewalk connection to the Civic Center on Elizabeth Lake Road. And again, we have a $500,000 grant that would be coming, that's reimbursement. So we're going to spend whatever we're going to spend. and $500,000 would be reimbursed.
What were the alternates that were included in the STE construction? Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, or did you say 2, 3, and 5?
The recommendation from the Parks Committee, what their alternates 2, 3, and 5 were the recommendations from the Parks Committee. 1 and 4 was not part of their recommendation.
Well, I'm going to say that this board has had a lot of discussion, and I know Mr. Roman and myself have, about paving that road in its entirety. It's going to be a maintenance issue, it's going to be an ongoing issue. I understand there may be some thoughts and processes about some environmental issues per se, water percolation and things of that nature, but when you have gravel down there, it's going to make it very difficult to maintain in the wintertime. It's also going to push that gravel off into the lawn, which ultimately happens, and if you don't believe that, take a walk around our campus, okay? The next thing that's going to happen is that if you want to look at it from an environmental standpoint, now we're going to have to replace gravel every year or every other year. Now we're paying someone to mine that gravel out of I'm doing the big carbon footprint picture here.
Environmental economics.
Yes, I'm doing environmental economics. You're digging it out of the ground, you're trucking it with a diesel machine to some distribution yard, you're trucking it from another distribution yard to a local gravel place, you're trucking it from that company here, and then you're paying a dozer or a grader to spread it around. Now, if that doesn't leave a nasty, ugly diesel carbon footprint, I don't know what does. Put the asphalt in, call it a day. It'll be safe, it'll be good for people to walk on. In particular, I'm concerned about, we will have pathways down there, but people will inevitably walk on the road. That's human nature, okay?
Rick, explain how it won't go all the way to the lake too.
No, that's part of the plan. So, but I would say we definitely need to include the alternate number 1 in that quote. So that being said, number 1, 2, 3, the traffic bollards, I think we can do those. We can probably do those intermittently where it could be potentially problematic. We don't need to do them everywhere.
That's correct, and the specifications don't require a particular number, so if we have some amount of bollards that are maybe intermixed with some boulders that we can get naturally from the construction site at the Civic Center, that number could probably be reduced.
I'm running a rock breeding program. If you've noticed, I've been quite successful with it.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so, and we'll have plenty of them when they start digging over there, so I'm sure of that. I can live without the additional exercise station, although what was the cost on that station?
$31,900.
Comment from the board?
Yeah, I agree with 100%. Need to pave the road.
Yeah, pave the
It's a
road for
fact.
sure. Amen, thank you. Mr. Powell and I
Yep.
tried so hard in the initial phases of the subcommittee to convince the Parks and Rec subcommittee members to pave for safety and maintenance, so I'm all for paving.
I'm surprised it's even up for discussion.
Yeah.
I'd say pave the road.
Well, it's an option, so we had to talk about it a little bit. I know you want it.
I support paving the road. I'm on the fence with the other exercise station, whatever the board wants.
Exercise station?
No, I was the one.
$55,000.
The only
I
thing I
didn't
want to
want
point
that
out,
either.
when you look at these bids, this is the second highest price for that number 4, that's 31.9. If you look, and I know we can't pick and choose, but 2 other bidders had that price at 22,000 and 15,000 for, compared to the
Wait.
32.
Wait and do it later.
So I'm saying, if you do it later, you can probably save some money, because.
Residents would enjoy it, but I think we have to be conservative
We
here
can
with
shop it out
cost.
anytime.
And,
Yep.
we're gonna need to cut something or cut back.
Cut back on the road paving and cut back on the additional exercise station. I know, I'm like the only person that doesn't want.
Back
Not
on
on the
what?
road paving.
On the road
I
paving?
don't want the whole road paved, and I want the recommendation of the Parks and Rec. I'm probably the only person on this board that doesn't want a full road paving.
Can I ask why you don't want the road?
I agree with the green part of it.
Never run a plow truck.
I've done a lot of snow plowing.
Okay,
It's a park, it's not
so
a park.
I'm going to just bring this up, stop me anywhere along the line, but I'm only doing this for the sake of conversation, not that this is. So the bid, alternate number 1, I want you to add these up. alternate number 2, alternate number 5, and then, I don't know how we're gonna do alternate number 3. I guess we could put it in there for the full amount and then adjust.
Not to exceed and then.
Not to
back off of
exceed,
it, yeah.
okay. Those added up, what is the total amount?
$2,006,925.
$2,006,000,
Yeah,
and what was the?
$925.
925. Any further discussion from the board? I will make a motion that we approve the submitted bid for Stanley Park Phase 1 and the following alternates: alternate 1, alternate 2, alternate 3, and alternate 5 for the cost of $2,006,925. That is in the form of a formal motion.
Mr. Supervisor, do we need to tweak 3 at all where it's not, where it's going to be sporadic?
It'll just not to
bollards?
exceed, they'll put it in
Okay.
as not to exceed, yeah.
But the plan is to cut back a little bit on the ballards?
Yeah, there's too many of them, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my motion, looking for
Want to
support.
mention awarding this to
Whoop.
STE Construction, the low bidder for the project.
STE Construction, thank you. I have support
Subject-
by,
And it needs to be subject to the DNR approval.
correct. Yeah. Can I finish? Oh,
You
you
were
guys
going,
are
I
just
just wanted
so
to make sure.
excited here, okay, all right. $2,006,925 by STE Construction, inclusive of those phases, subject to approval by the DNR. I made the motion.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Ruggles. Roll call vote.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Another historic move.
Hannah, you got the not to exceed in there, right?
Okay. Next item that'll involve Eric. Resolution number 24009 to approve Parks and Recreation bond issuance Stanley Park Triangle Trail. This would be for $2.7 million. I believe this is on a 15-year payback, is that correct? Or the board is going to make that decision? But I think the decision's already been made because we aren't going to have the surplus funds by any way, shape, or the imagination if,
Well, I think we should let Eric maybe talk a little bit about what the board needs to decide. Do we need to decide the years now, or is that left open?
No, you don't need to decide the years now. That will be built into, if this is approved tonight and a notice of intent is published, no petition is received, and I come back to you with a bond resolution to authorize issuance of bonds, at that time, that resolution will include parameters, including the maximum duration of the bonds to be issued. So no, you don't need to decide that tonight. But this resolution is similar to ones you've seen before. It's the first legal step in authorizing financing under state law, authorizes the publication of a notice of intent to issue bonds directed at the electors of the township. Once published, 1/4 page in size in the newspaper, it starts a 45-day referendum period, after which if no petition and no qualifying petition has been filed to send the question to the voters, then you will have acquired the authority to issue bonds. This resolution sets the maximum amount that can be issued at $2.7 million. It tells the electors of their right of referendum and also that the bonds would be repaid from the general funds of the township, subject to applicable constitutional and statutory taxing limitations on the township. In other words, you wouldn't be able to raise new taxes in order to repay these bonds. You'd have to do it within existing limitations. The other thing that this resolution does is it qualifies any current expenditures for reimbursement from future bond proceeds. That's a requirement under the tax code. This resolution does not require the issuance of bonds. Ultimately, it doesn't require issuance in any particular amount, merely seeking to acquire the authority to issue bonds when and if you choose to do so. If there are any questions, I'll take those now.
So, hopefully our millage renewal will pass for Parks and Rec. And can we use that money to service these bonds?
Yes, the millage renewal describes a number of uses that are very similar to the uses that are described here in this notice of intent. And if you're paying for those with the bond proceeds, then, like I said, the pledge would be the limited tax, full faith and credit of the township. The millage monies would be part of that, description.
Okay, and the 2.7 million bond proceeds can be used on other park and rec projects as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so effectively, even though we've got a $500,000 grant, we can basically bank that.
Depending on what the terms of the grant are, yeah.
Your savings just went up to 2.3.
And our debt
this
just
is
increased.
approved.
Yeah.
What's that?
Excuse me? What'd you say, Justin?
I said the debt's also increasing. So that $500,000, the money's fungible, so if you're not spending it on one thing, you're just paying it off the debt.
As long as there aren't any grant
Right.
requirements that require it to be used a certain way.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we don't need to wait and see if the millage is passed before we consider this? I mean, we can service this without a millage passing?
We need to use some general fund money,
Yeah,
Scott.
we would, yeah.
If the millage did not pass.
But either way, if it didn't, we would have general fund money to take care of this debt.
Well, we have
Say
1.8 right now set aside, okay?
Mhm.
But you have two projects. You've got the Triangle Trail project.
Oh, I know, I'm just adding up the bond payments here, and the total is more than what we've got saved, so.
Exactly.
And again, this resolution, the notice of intent, they don't authorize the issuance of bonds. It's just merely seeking to tap into the authority that's provided by state statute. And if there's no petition filed against this notice of intent, then at a later date, we'd come back with the bond resolution that actually authorizes bonds, sets parameters for issuing those bonds, and delegates the proper authority to the proper officials of the township to do it.
And these resolutions do have the clause for us to pay back what we expend, correct?
This one does qualify prior expenditures for reimbursement from future bond
Very
proceeds.
good, thank you. Okay.
Motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve resolution 24-009, resolution authorizing publication of notice of intent to issue municipal securities.
Support.
Support.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Moving forward.
I'm sorry, may I have a roll call vote on that?
Oh,
on the
I'm
resolution,
sorry.
please?
Yes, roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
And Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Thank you.
Eric, thanks so much for
Thank you,
coming
Eric.
out and helping.
Thank you. Okay. Item J, request to approve cost participation agreement tri-party program with Oakland County for 2024 gravel road program. Well, this is something we do every year about this time of year. And we have allocated in our budget roughly $57,000 and some change, of which the county and the Board of Commissioners will match, which will give us $171,610 towards our gravel program. One thing about White Lake, we got no shortage of gravel roads and no shortage of need of gravel. So I would like to make a motion to approve the cost participation agreement in the tri-party agreement for 2024 for the township's participation of $57,203 for a total program of $171,610, and that is in the form of a motion.
I'll support that.
I have motion, I have support by trustee Voorhees. All in favor?
Quick question.
Whoop, go
Does
ahead.
that motion mention that the money is general fund money, or does it need to be?
It can be.
Yeah, if you can add that to the motion.
Then it'll be paid for out of general fund monies.
I do a roll call, Rick, because it's money.
Okay, roll call vote?
Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
And Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Very good. We'll get those roads worked on this summer. Next, speaking of roads, Request to approve the bid for Elizabeth Lake Road reconstruction project, which is way overdue. And as I tap danced around the room with my shoes on, I was happy to get a phone call that we finally moved the mountain and received a permit, which will be 2 years in June since that project. So I have.
The project that was a high priority.
Yes.
Yes, for them to review.
That's right. Yes, it was. I was told it was going to be a high priority. I want to thank you, Michael, for all your diligent efforts, and Lee's, and the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and the number of things that I won't get into. But nonetheless, we are moving forward. When we rebid this, or bid this rather, we calculated it in 2022, okay? I believe that the numbers came back at like, was it 2 million something?
A little over 2.6 million in 2022.
Yeah, 2.6 million, and we are now at 3 million,
88,000.
88,821, is that correct, Michael?
There was a lot of numbers on this. Let me check.
Yeah, I know.
3,088,000.
3,075,000 is the contractor that we're recommending.
Okay, hang on here.
And I can get into the.
You are right, there are a lot of numbers here.
Okay.
Oh, there it is, $3,075,377.47. And then consider approving an 8% contingency for the project. So basically, in 2 years' time, from 2.6 to 3 is not really as bad as I had anticipated it could have been. And looking at the project and the scope of work and the impact that it's going to have on this community from here on out, and I believe it will set the tone for our little town center district. And when it is done, people will take notice that this board has moved forward to do something very, very interesting and cool. And we have definitely done a lot of work on this, and I can only say thank you to all my colleagues, planning and engineering, and the other board members for putting up with all the time that lapsed. And I think we could have probably done better with this last year. It would have been nice to have it go out with the roundabout project at the time that it was done. That was the original planning, but the road commission had other ideas to in the process. So here we are. Yes, Mr. Roman.
I just want to thank you for all the time and effort you put in, because this was your project. You took it on, you went solo. So thank you. And then just a question for you, the grant money.
Yes.
1.6 million?
1.6.
Okay, is that 100% approved?
Yes.
Or it is? Okay,
So
great, I'm in support.
we're in good shape with that. Any questions or comments from the board? I have a Valentine's Day present here, that's why, but I'm not going to talk about it till the end here.
Can I make a motion?
You're not wearing some weird shirt underneath it.
Who would do something like that?
We need a motion.
Well, before we roll the motion, I want to share a letter that I received from the Road Commission, and this was just received, so it's hot off the press. Mr. Supervisor Kowal, it's exciting to see that after many years of hard work, the transformative Elizabeth Lake Road project will be constructed this summer. This will significantly enhance the livability of your community while supporting economic development. In assistance of this project, RCOC is willing to provide $200,000 in cash and waive the permit fees typically charged. The contractor will still need to pull bonds and insurance as normally required by this project. Once the bid is approved by your board, I will have my staff develop an agreement that outlines the conditions noted above. Once again, congratulations. So we're going to get $200,000 Valentine's Day present from the county, so not bad, eh? So that goes into the pot, and it's not a bad thing. I figure that's the least they owe this township.
After 2 years.
So, after 2 years.
100,000 a year.
It's all right. It's all good.
The permit fee allowance is $10,000
Yeah,
on these things too, so that's another chunk.
Oh, yeah, it would be. This kind of project, absolutely. So with that,
I have a real
Yes.
quick question. So my page 4, I believe, the numbers are so little and I keep trying to expand it. So I can't, work with me a little bit, I can't totally see all of it. So this is structured for DLZ to be paid how?
So
That's on the next.
That'd be the next item.
Oh, that's the next
That's
one.
not-
Okay,
that's
I got
not
my
this- you're on the-
agenda items mixed up.
Yeah, you're on
then.
the wrong item
I thought
on
it
the-
was in here and I couldn't see it.
yeah, you're on
Hey,
the,
Rick,
Gotcha.
was
Sorry.
was the
Sorry.
permit fee included in the bid amount?
Yes,
It was.
it's in there.
so that'll come back out.
That comes back out?
I don't want to answer for you, Mike, but I just saw the 10,000.
I mean, typically, we put a
I meant
permit
the
allowance.
200,000.
That's some of it. They're also gonna need a,
No.
10 is.
Oh, the
Well, but
200,000's not in the bid amount.
but the
then.
10 also covers other permits, Sean, so there'd be like soil erosion and a few other items that might fall under that.
Yeah, there are some other permits that are gonna be required. So, okay,
200 is not in the bid amount.
No,
no,
Okay.
this 200 is, here we go.
Read it,
They're
and I
helping
thought
us
it was all
defer
one
some
Yeah,
of the
but
costs.
the cost would have been 3,075,000 plus 200,000. Right?
No, take the 3,075,000, take 200,000 off of it. That's what the road's gonna cost us now.
Is that right?
the road commission is applying, they're gonna give you $200,000 to put towards the project.
It's a cash,
So
That's
the
great.
cost of construction is
saying.
$3,075,000. And they're gonna pay $200,000 to go towards it.
Going to help.
It is going to help. Okay.
1.8
that
now.
helps, at one
You do
point.
s- Can I ask?
Sure.
It's on the agenda as request to approve bid. You still do need a motion.
Certainly.
Well, yeah, we're just talking about it, yeah. So with that being said, I would like to propose a motion that we award the contract for the Elizabeth Lake Road Town Center Road Improvement Project to Springline Excavating LLC of Farmington Hills in the amount of $3,075,377.47, and that the township set aside 8% as a contingency for the project to accommodate any changes necessary in the scope of work as it arises. That is in the form of a formal motion.
I'll second it.
I have support. Will roll call vote, please.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, treasurer Roman,
Yep.
and supervisor Cowell.
Unequivocally, yes. Okay, thank you, folks. Man, what a road. Pardon the pun, okay? But we're getting there. Next item, request to, so much for our savings. Request to award Elizabeth Lake Road Reconstruction, Construction Engineering Services Proposal, DLZ. Mr. O'Neill, anything you want to add?
Not at this time. I know Mike can probably share with you some of the methodology that went into putting this proposal together, but I would probably turn it over to him.
Michael?
Sure. Yeah, give you a little background info. We started to talk earlier about the inspection. Supervisor Cowell asked us to break that portion out on this proposal. It's still a little bit of a gray area to me. When we reached out to the road commission, we were told that they weren't going to do any actual inspection, and that they would, what they said was they would waive their drive-by inspection fee. And that meant they just weren't going to do it because the township, they were anticipating the township was going to do their own inspection. I don't know if you guys have been told the same. Regardless, our proposal separates out that value, and we qualified it with.
We were told the same, I was told the same,
That you
Okay.
weren't?
that they are not going to do the inspections on the
Okay.
project.
They're not going to. So in the proposal, we qualified the inspection. We're anticipating 24 weeks of construction schedule. And we put in 1,200 hours of inspection for full-time, not knowing kind of how the road commission would play into that and then how much effort we could exchange with them on this project. So we based the 24-week construction schedule off of our best knowledge. We haven't got a construction schedule from the contractor at this point. So we did our best to kind of estimate that duration. As we talked before, there might be opportunities for cost savings, looking at the other project. But we really won't know how that's going to unfold until we get there.
And the costs on these, again, are not to exceed. And again, depending on the schedule of inspection. I mean, the road commission will have, I would call them intermittent inspection, okay? So we may work it out where maybe I'm not saying, I'm just drawing a theory for reference. The road commission comes out on Tuesdays and Thursdays and does their thing. DLZ might come out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and do theirs. So that could result in a significant savings.
And we're perfectly happy to work with the township and adjust as we see how the project is progressing. We just don't, at this point, know how that's going to unfold.
So what we have before us is the worst-case scenario. So this is a pet project here. So there's going to be a lot of attention to this particular project by a certain individual on the board.
I think I know who you're talking about, yeah.
And who's really at home in the mud. So we will get out there and make sure that the township's interests are watched, and we will be watching the county and DLZ. And Mr. Powell and myself have volunteered for this tag team duty, as we both have experience in this particular field and this type of work. So he more so than I, no question. But nonetheless, I've done my share of large projects. So I have no problem voicing my opinion if I think something's not in place. That is about the most guarantee we can get. We have a great relationship with DLC. I know we've had some speed bumps along the way with some things and different things, but since you're the engineers that were put to task for this, I'm recommending that this project be done by DLZ. I do not know whether or not they give you any lateral movement or not, and you'd have to run up the flagpole, but typically numbers like this, projects like this are running in approximately inspections are running approximately about 7%-ish of the cost, which would put this at the whole thing at around 220,000 or something like that. 210, 220, something like that at the end of the day. Where does DLZ stand on this?
So as far as a proposal goes, it's all based on effort. Like we talked about, we separated out the items. So in order to reduce the price, we'd have to reduce the scope, which just basically means we got to really control the time that we're out there. So I think that effort's going to be, a lot of that money is, you can see where the values are broken out. A lot of that money is in the inspection services. There is a fair amount in administration too. But there's a lot of effort that goes into that too. We have to coordinate with all the utility companies before we even start anything. That's like the first task, is coordinating with. We've asked for, gas services and the sanitary services that kind of need to be clarified to set the stage for the project related to the Civic Center project.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes work,
Right.
I know.
Right. Grant coordination and administration, making sure that all your ducks are in a row for your grant money, so.
That's true.
So you're gonna get that payback, however that works, disbursement, however it is, but yeah, I'll say a lot of the time is construction inspection. Material testing, that's a subcontractor to us, that we got quotes from them. We can certainly self-perform that if we think we can do a better value. A lot of our inspectors are trained in some of those inspection, but we'd have to have the equipment available to them. So if they're coming out on a day 4 inspection and it would be valuable for them to have the equipment to do the testing, we might have some opportunities for some savings there too, but can't always rely on that. So we got a price from a subcontractor for material testing, again, based on our anticipated duration of construction.
Okay, questions, comments?
Sorry.
I'll just be quick. I want
Trustees
to talk to you
Smith.
about inspection again. It's the highest cost here. So I think I heard you say, and I just want to be clear, that, we don't know what the road commission's going to do. So say all of a sudden they start showing up and inspect, you will not charge us, you won't double dip?
Well, there'll be a schedule. There will be no
You'll
just
know
showing
ahead
up.
of, you'll know, or Mike will know?
So,
How will
I mean,
that
the
work?
plan would be to work
Because
with,
we don't anticipate them, so what if they just start to appear?
well, so then, if they just start to appear,
Or that
then,
doesn't happen, they give you a schedule?
if they
how
give
does it
us,
work?
then we know how to plan for the project. I mean, if they just show up randomly, I wouldn't know not to show up that day, obviously, but if we can get in a rhythm with them and kind of anticipate when they might be there,
Then you'll pull back.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say that I don't know how the road commission is gonna administer the project from a financial standpoint, because they don't, outside of the $200,000,
They're not going to.
have a vested interest in how much the project costs you. So I think that's where it might become a little gray, because, well, we're out there, a lot of these items are unit price, and we're gonna be track and pay items. So if they put in, 100 linear feet of storm pipe, we'll log that and know that that's what they're eligible to get paid. If the road commission is out there and we're not, then when we come back, we're gonna be playing catch-up on, okay, so what did they do the last couple days or whatever, and trying to figure that out. So it does put a little more administrative burden on us to try to catch up, but I think it'd be worth it if.
Yeah, so we should plan like to not expect them. And if they do for some reason, give you a schedule in the future, then.
I've had a conversation with the powers to be, and there'll be a coordinated effort.
Okay,
So that's the only answer I could get.
okay, that's better than no answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, questions, comments? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, just a couple comments. One is that part of Exhibit A that discusses terms and conditions under item number 10, insurance, it mentions in Exhibit C that's supposed to be attached, but I didn't get an Exhibit C. So I don't know if one even exists, but I just wanted to bring that up.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was one comment. And then in talking with Rick, I know you mentioned that 7% of the contract amount, as far as you remembered, I guess is a typical number. So I would like to see the not to exceed amount for contract administration, construction inspection, and material testing, not to exceed 7% of the contract amount, which is about 210 or 220,000.
With the exception, and where I would interject on that would be if they go into contingency, they would be entitled to inspection on contingency at the same rate.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So to qualify that proposal, the value of 7% of the construction costs, but the difference would come off of the inspection value. And if you're requesting inspection beyond that amount, our inspector would just get paid the same
Would
amount
have
they had
to
been.
look at that accordingly.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I think I can pass that along. I don't see a problem with it. It's all scalable from that point, right? So-
Correct.
So I really don't see an issue on our end.
Okay, all right. Question?
I wanted to remind the board that recently DLZ counsel, legal counsel, and I negotiated the terms and conditions. And I appreciate they used the one version of the terms and conditions that we negotiated. Part of that is a new Exhibit C now that will accompany the proposals, which is the insurance requirement that we got from Craig Manser for these types of projects. So that's why it's normally not in your general standards and conditions, which is why you were surprised that there is an Exhibit C. But that's what should be included before the contract is signed.
Okay. So, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion, unless someone else wants to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the engineering agreement with DLZ for the engineering, materials testing and administrative, not to exceed 7% of the construction contract cost and/or any applicable contingency of the 8%. That is in the form of a motion.
Second.
Or, oh,
Go
you
ahead.
give it to Mr.
Go ahead.
Noble.
You go ahead, sir.
I have support from Mr. Roman. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Coal.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Coal.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, did I vote?
Treasurer
No.
Roman.
Mr. Roman?
I'm a yes as well.
Yes. Well,
Sorry.
okay.
I know my vote doesn't matter, but.
Yeah, oh, motion
Record.
carried.
Did I vote?
It's getting late.
Did I vote? It's getting late, yeah. Second reading amendment or fee ordinance number 129 DPS. Any questions or comments on that, or move to adoption?
I'd like to make a motion for second reading amendment to fee ordinance number 129.
Move to adoption.
Move to adoption.
Okay. I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.
The only one that voted.
Next item, Civic Center Committee update. Mr. Powell is not here, but Michael and I will tell you what we know. We are moving forward, obviously, step by step. We are now at a point where we're looking at some budgeting numbers, and we are going to have a very, very busy day tomorrow. So we have to look at where we can do potential cuts. I don't want to get the board with misinformation, because I believe at this point it would be misinformation. So until all this information comes together, we need to do quite a bit of looking at some value engineering and a sort. Mr. O'Neill?
I think you've covered it. Tomorrow, we have a meeting that'll probably go for 4 hours, if it's anything like the SD phase of this, where we go over all the facts and figures that McCarthy and Smith will come back with on both buildings and the site work project. So I think it would be appropriate to kind of see where we're at budget-wise, come up with some ideas one way or another, and then bring them to the board. Probably, my hunch would be for a special meeting to kind of see where we're at with everything before we go any further and make sure everybody's on the same page. I also, before we move on, I want to nail down the building materials, because it seems to be changing in little bits. And, I'm just going to say this. This board is deciding what this building looks like, not the architects. This building is going to be decided 100% by the 7 of you. And so some of the frustration I have is that both firms have sort of pushed certain pieces that at the staff level and at the committee level we've pushed back on. So I think we need to kind of regroup, and there may be just little odds and ends, but all of you need to know.
They keep giving him.
All of you need to know every single detail that has changed since you said this is exactly the way we want it, because what I have is not exactly the way that you guys want it. So
You mean the one lady that didn't like our decision is?
That's right.
Pushing things around?
Yeah.
So
That's a surprise.
So I don't want to make a big deal of it. I'm sort of venting because, before we go and do mock-ups in the building so we can see it in the daylight, we need to be comfortable. By we, I mean the 7 of you need to be comfortable with exactly what is going into that. And so things are going to start probably moving very quickly, but before they move any further, we need to come back here and talk about it.
Well, after tomorrow, when we have a little more insight and a little bit of processing time for that, which I'm anticipating a few days, I will schedule a special, and we'll sit down and all get together and talk about what is going to happen in the next few days, and also some of the changes that were suggested by the architects. Some of them have merit.
Don't have her come.
Well, she needs to hear it directly from you.
That's fine.
I'm not sure.
She can read the minutes.
And it's not just her, and it's not just this piece. There's other things, so.
So just food for thought really quick. While you guys are going into that meeting tomorrow, I'm sure you have a million moving parts and things to think about to cut costs. But while we're talking about materials, I had talked to Director O'Neill a couple times about this. I like what we chose, and I'm all for what the board, that's a board decision, and I think that's important. But I did think afterwards, why weren't we given more options to choose from? We were given very limited selection. I don't want to say I want to go back on what we chose. I'm just curious, and perhaps if we have to cut costs, maybe we cut costs and materials. But I don't, when you go to choose your home, the options are unlimited. And we were only given like 2 to 3 things to choose from. So if costs become a major issue, maybe we do need to, I don't know, because maybe you guys will be very successful in cutting the budget tomorrow. But if it needs to be cut somewhere, maybe we need to think about different material, that's more
That
cost
is on the
effective.
table. Yep, that's, yep. That is on the table.
I don't want to go back on what we chose, because I want to stick with the group decision, and it was good, except we were just given such limited options.
Yeah, no, we.
That was by design, though, Liz. We didn't want to do, our committee didn't want to do is to bring 15 different colors to the board for bricks, because we felt we'd never agree on it. So our thought process was, let's try to narrow it down to
Well, maybe
3
not
or 4.
necessarily color, but actual material. Like maybe there's something material-wise that's cheaper.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because after tomorrow, I think we're gonna have some other options on the table.
Okay,
And we
good.
can bring those back to the board.
Awesome, okay.
And
Sounds good.
we arrived at, just to be clear on the colors and the material types, it was each architect's best shot, and then brought them in and said, which of these do you like? So it really wasn't the committee, and I'd be the worst person to pick colors out, so it certainly wasn't me, but, yeah, I think,
I just think it's worth thinking about if we need to really cut costs.
We'll see where it ends up. So that's the update on that. Now I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session to consider attorney-client privileges communications in accordance with MCL 15.2681H. That is in the form of a motion.
Second.
I have second. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kola.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Make a motion to go back into general session.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're now in general session. Making a motion to skip trustee comments tonight.
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.